Hey, there we are. How's it going, everyone? Randall, my man. I literally log in and you're the first name I see. Good to see you, Randall. All right, here we are with Roy from Aquavitae. How you doing, Roy?
I'm very well, Jesse. It's very nice to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Absolute pleasure. Sorry about all the scheduling issues we had. Roy and I couldn't figure out the time difference between our two respective locations.
We figured it out in the end. We got there in the end. Who'd have guessed that there would be 13 hours difference between us, though, right?
Yeah. We were both talking numbers and talking our local times and not realizing that wasn't the same thing. But we made it in the end. So welcome, dude. It is great to have you back. We've had you on before, and you were received very, very well by the chasers in this community, and so back by popular demand. It's nice to have you, man.
Well, that says a lot because I remember that for some reason we had a really poor connection, and I think there was little to no video. So now that they can see me, they perhaps won't have me back again. But that's nice of you to say. So thank you so much.
Close your eyes, people. Listen to the silky smooth accent of Roy. You're fine. Oh, we've got people in New Zealand here. Wow. All right. I'm seeing Dunedin. That's cool, man. You're here to drink on a Wednesday morning with me. That's excellent. I realized about 5 minutes before I jumped on here with you, Roy, that I had not eaten today, and that I'm declaring that would have been a huge mishap. So I went and threw some food down super quick. That was why I was a couple of minutes after you joined.
No problem. Yeah. As long as you've eaten something now. But now that you've started to talk about eating, I'm suddenly hungry.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, it's pushing stupid o'clock for Roy. What is the time there now, man? Now that I'm so
I know it's fine.
11:30.
It's 11:30 in the PM. So I'll see you past the witching hour tonight, I think. But that's not atypical for me because if I'm live streaming, it would be at a similar time at night as well. So this is actually perfect for me. I think it's more difficult for you because maybe you'll be sipping a whiskey at 10 a.m. in the morning or something.
Yeah. I mean, the things we do, right? It's horrible. I just saw someone from Iraq in the comments, which is pretty freaking cool.
Wow.
Austin, Texas. That is awesome. Yes. Texas has fast become my spiritual home. Pun definitely intended. There we go, Texas. So yeah, hopefully next year, guys, we'll be able to get back there if things open up. And
yeah, that was difficult. That was a difficult wound to lick this year, not being able to get out to Texas, I have to say. It was nice that we did the virtual Bastards Ball and everything to I see Matt, it was Ittrick Whiskey Crusaders is in, he hosted the La Quinta after party. We did not bad at getting together and reminding ourselves just how much we were actually missing.
Yeah. I mean, selfishly, it probably worked out all right for me because I wasn't going to be able to make it this year anyway. Well, I say that, but the reason I wasn't going to be able to make it, definitely wasn't going to be able to make it, was because of COVID and, losing the day job and all that jazz. So if that hadn't happened, maybe I could have snuck away for a cheeky long weekend or something. But who knows?
COVID has changed lots of things for a long time, I think. But sorry, I don't mean to mention the C word.
Yeah, I know, the dirty C word. We've been deplatformed, Roy. We're shut down. That's it.
Sorry. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we are here to talk whiskey, obviously, and Roy's forte is the width and depth and breadth of knowledge in Scotch. Compared to me, I know that you're not a boastful man, but let's face it, you have a huge catalog of knowledge up in your head, both history, technical, and on the tasting side of things too. So we are going to exploit that today, guys. And then later on, we're getting Lindsay to come on. And if you guys have stumbled on this stream and you don't know what's going on, we're using the Sampleox app to taste 4 different whiskeys. And essentially what happens is that we've got quote unquote experts that have tasted those whiskeys. They've put verified details into the app. And then when you taste them, you don't get to find out what those are until after you've put all your details in, and then you can kind of compare your notes to the experts' notes. And we're going to give some prizes away. Lindsay's coming on later on, and she is one of the creators of the app and also a sensory scientist. So she'll be on in roughly an hour. So if you've got questions for her, fire away. Then if anyone is having a horrible time with the app, feel free to shout out in the questions if you've been trying to use it and you can't. We'll probably deal with that more, obviously, when Lindsay's on. But in the meantime, Roy and I thought it would be a really cool idea to kind of, in some ways, go way back to basics in terms of getting your feet wet, tasting whiskey, and in other ways, sort of try and push you past that initial wall of it just tastes like Bernie. And I know when I first started tasting whiskey, that's all I got. That's literally all I could taste. And I know a lot of people are in that boat too.
Yeah.
So Roy, you've got a cunning plan for you and I to go through together today that people can do at home.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the introduction, Jesse. It's very nice of you. But the disclaimer here is, of course, that it's nice of you to think of me as knowledgeable. It really is. But I'm an enthusiast. I really am an enthusiast. And I think the knowledge that I have gained is through that enthusiasm, that passion for whiskey and things. And you retain a lot of the information. I tend to retain more about Scotch just because that's the environment I walk around in. Yeah, so if we do talk about coming at things from a Scotch perspective, I mean, it's applicable right across the whiskey landscape, honestly. But when you come into exploring whiskey, how to best get over some of those kind of entry barriers that you're going to hit, knowledge being one of them, the high alcohol, the high ABV being another, and obviously price. I think price isn't probably talked about enough. It's an expensive thing. It's very easy to fall foul of labeling and branding. So it's nice to have a wee bit of research. It's nice to touch a wee bit of knowledge so that you go in a little bit armed, because there are still really good value whiskies out there that are available that really do bring, as you said earlier, Jesse, when we're talking about bang for your buck. But if you talk purely from a taste perspective, there is a little mechanism that I like to use, and I'll share with you if you're interested.
We're always interested, man.
Yeah.
And let's just say before we go on too, I 100% agree with you with the price thing, and especially when you're new to it, right? Like I taste is Bernie. Every whiskey I've ever had tastes the same. It either tastes like kind of good whiskey or kind of not great whiskey, or I put it in my Coke. And now some random person on the internet's telling me to go out and spend $160 on a bottle because it's going to blow my mind. You know, like, what if I'm not even a whiskey person? You know, like.
And I'm probably one of the people that could do that. That's often what. Sometimes I'm speaking to a beginner. Sometimes I'm speaking to somebody that's been in it for a while. Sometimes I'm speaking to somebody that's on the same level as me. But I've discovered a whiskey that's amazing, and I want to share it. And sometimes you forget that just because you think it's okay to spend that $160, that you have to remember a time that was shocking to you to consider that one bottle of spirit could cost that amount of money. But when you realize that actually you're going to get 20, 30 pours out of that bottle, every one of them is going to be a stop and stare moment. Every one of them is going to be a pay attention event. You're going to pour that and you're going to spend an hour, 90 minutes, the entire length of a movie sitting on your sofa with that single dram. Every sniff, every sip, every glance in the glass is going to hold your attention for as long as potentially a large pour of beer or wine might have done before. So you do have to kind of understand that, yes, it seems expensive, but when you get into the appreciation side of whiskey, you're slowing right down. You're really taking your time, and it becomes much, much more about taste and much less about drink.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't want that to, what I'm saying is I don't want that to scare people off, right? You don't have to spend that much money.
Absolutely.
And people will go out and spend that much money because, let's face it, we kind of end up chasing the dragon a little bit, right? We're trying to find something that's new or different or not what we've had before, or dialed up to 11. Yeah, you don't need to do it. So let's talk about this little trifecta idea you've got going on. And I see some people asking about Q&A. We are totally going to ask questions. We'll have time for that after we get through this. But turns out that it's really freaking hard to hold a conversation and get where you want to go and also answer questions at the same time. So we'll get through this, and then we'll have time for Q&A with Roy, and then we'll do the same thing with Lindsay later on as well. And if I'm not completely blind drunk at 12:30, I'll hang around for even longer. Yeah. And answer some more questions. So, Roy, what is your cunning plan to help people? You called them hooks, right? Like to discover the 3 of the main hooks in whiskey and really be able to, I guess the idea is as soon as you can get your foot in the door, right? As soon as you can pick out something in that whiskey that's meaningful to you, that isn't just whiskey. It's not whiskey flavor.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. One of the barriers is obviously that kind of knowledge and that experience and that kind of library of flavors and everything. But before you even get to that, what you have to try and overcome is this idea that it's all smoke and mirrors, and that these tasters that you hear and people talking about the flavors, they're getting honey and they're getting oak and butterscotch, and they're getting dried fruits, and they're getting cooked fruits and bright fruits and melon and aromatic this and tobacco that and chocolate. It sounds ridiculous. It can even sound pretentious. But what's happened there is that people have come into the environment just purely from a curiosity perspective, and something has happened in their journey that's made them start to taste things in the whiskey that they had no idea existed there. And that's when you start chasing the dragon, because you're looking for all. You just cannot believe all the things that can exist in a single little glass of fine, well-aged, mature spirit. So you do kind of chase it, but you can easily access all of those concepts and ideas at the budget end of things, at the cheaper end of things. Now, unfortunately, we have to remember that for context, we're going to be talking about Scotch single malt whiskey or Scotch malt whiskey this evening for the most part. And that's just an expensive thing. The joining fee here tends to be maybe £20, the cheapest bottle you'll get. This kind of supermarket prices are about £20 to £30, 35 and 40 maybe. And then you go into specialist stores and really you're spending anything.
Well, any amount of money you want to you want to spend.
So then it becomes a question of value. So when you come into it, what you're trying to do is you're trying to focus in on flavor, and you're trying to focus in on these hooks that I talk about. So rather than getting what you talked about, Jesse, that generic whiskey burn and that whiskey flavor, that whiskey smell, that everybody kind of knows what that smell is, and everybody kind of knows what that taste is. But tasting beyond that, I have a vague recollection of what that generic whiskey taste and smell was, but it's it's a memory, a distant memory now, because whiskey, it's like a communication. And when you start to enjoy whiskey, you immediately start to taste amazing things. Now that's a big sell. I've set that up, haven't I? So what I would suggest to people coming in is to try and find 2 or 3 bottles at a reasonable price that are very, very different from each other.
Yep.
So what would be a fantastic choice and not too expensive? Let's just pull a Glenmorangie 10 out the air as an example, okay? Here we've got a 40% ABV whiskey. Maybe in some export markets it might be 43, but no higher than that, 40% ABV. So the minimum whiskey can be, really, to be sold as whiskey. 10-year age statement and a nice light bourbon matured, ex-bourbon matured. So the casks that's been matured in previously held bourbon. So what you've got is light toffee and vanilla notes, that Highland style, some creaminess, some maltiness, lots of the spirit will still be active. That is the new make spirit. Whiskey is absolutely as clear as water, by the way, when it comes off the still, as you know very well, Jesse. And it doesn't take colour until it's in the cask. So you'll see in that Glenmorangie a very light ex-bourbon style. vanilla, toffee, that kind of route. Then you might want to try and put something up against it that's been matured in something different, that brings in a completely different range of flavors. And that would be the traditional way to make Scotch whisky, which was how pretty much all Scotch whisky was matured up until around about the 1960s. It still is today, but to a much lesser extent, and that is ex-sherry casks. Typically, European oak or more modern sherry casks will probably be more typically American oak. And what these casks bring along is a completely different set of flavors: dried fruits, spices, really quite Christmassy, warm, wintry type aromas. The spice and the engagement from an ex-sherry cask is a completely different prospect. And if I was to just try and grab two bottles to show you the difference in color here for the guys that are watching, on my right hand side here, look at how dark that color is in that ex-sherry cask, right? This is this particular whiskey I'm holding here is fully Oloroso, and this one here is bourbon. So you can see that light gold and honey color versus that dark mahogany of the ex-sherry cask. And that's kind of giving you immediately quite a stark contrast. This is single malt Scotch whisky, but it's just been aged in two different casks. Anybody
pulling that much difference? Yeah,
anybody, even if it's looking at the glass. First time you've sipped whiskey, you would sip those two whiskies. I'm not suggesting you would love them from the get-go, but you would immediately be able to tell that there's quite a significant difference.
So I'm just going to cut in you real quick. I saw this comment coming past. Rich, I can't 100% remember, but I think this is actually the way that I found Roy, because Roy's got a series of, was it 2 videos now, Roy? Saying how
those are quite old. Those are quite old videos. I mean, they're still valid. They're still absolutely valid. How to pronounce Scotch whisky, and that was because when I got into whiskey, I'm a native Scot. And I was pronouncing most of it wrong. So if we're pronouncing it wrong here, yeah, absolutely. So much of it is founded in Gaelic, Scots Gaelic, and that's 2% of our population speak Scots Gaelic. So you have to. There's lots of things that you have to learn, and quite honestly, the only way you're going to learn how to pronounce Scotch whisky, you can't even write it down phonetically and then pull it off. You've got to hear it and then try and kind of to pronounce it verbatim. So Rich was pronouncing Glenmorangie wrong, was he? Glenmorangie, perhaps, or
yeah, I must admit, I'm pretty sure I've got it stuck in my head as Glenmorangie.
Rich, if you walk into a bar and they don't serve you your Glenmorangie because you pronounced it wrong, walk into another bar. There's too much. When I did the pronunciation videos, the idea was to kind of help people, because there is an argument that it's a bit like a given name. So if I was calling you Jesse or something like that instead of Jesse, and you corrected me and I continued to pronounce it wrong out of just stubbornness, then that's not good. So when it is a given name, when it's a brand, then you should probably learn how to pronounce it properly. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't be something that excludes people from enjoying whiskey because they don't know how to pronounce it. So
let's face it, man, there's certain, depending on where you grew up and the way you learned to talk with the people that surrounded you, there are certain sounds from other phonetic languages that are just really freaking hard to say for other people, right? So, dude, if people are putting in the effort and they're trying,
people
that's all you could ever ask of someone, right?
They're not being rude, they're difficult. They just genuinely have never, they've never had to pronounce it in any other way. So it's pronunciation is fine. I wouldn't worry about it at all. If the Scots get it wrong, everybody's permitted to get it wrong.
Where were we? Sorry, I forgot.
Tasting. I was just about to add a third one to the mix.
Okay. Yep.
But so Glenmorangie 10 would probably be somewhere in the order of I don't know, 25 or 30 pounds, that kind of price. I don't know about down in New Zealand or the States or whatever.
We've been finding lately, Roy, that the prices almost convert exactly with currency to New Zealand, which is odd to me. It's pretty much like most of the bottles we've looked at have been pretty close just in terms of changing currency, right?
But you paid that Glendronach that you recently bought was quite expensive though, dollar-wise, right?
It was 120.
Yeah.
So what's
So
that?
it's 65 here.
63. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, well, that's okay. So if it's $2 New Zealand to the pound, then that's good. You're paying the same amount as us, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I cut you off again. Third, you wanted to introduce a third main flavor or flavor hook to that mix.
So I've been
really
evangelizing whiskey around my dining room table for years. And bizarrely, when you think it's those sweet flavors from the bourbon cask or the nice Christmas spices from the sherry cask that's going to hook somebody in, my most successful converter of people to Scotch is not what you would expect. And that's that super powerful, heavily peated, very smoky Western Highlands or Islay style of whiskey. I've got in my hand here, I've got a 40% ABV Lefroy 10-year-old. Just because, Jesse, there was a chance that you were going to have that on hand.
So for those of you that know how things work here, I had a third of a bottle of Lefroy. When was that? Maybe 4 or 5 days ago when we were talking, Roy?
Yeah, no, it's not so long, right?
Yeah, and I went to find it today, and I found it in the recycling bin. Because my wife had finished it off single-handedly.
Well, I think that's okay, and I think it's interesting that your wife is going
love her for it.
Repeated stuff, right?
So I don't have the 10, guys. I've got the select, and if you haven't figured out what we're doing here, guys, the plan is for us to pour. I guess let's call it like it's kind of like a triangle, right? There's 3 whiskeys they've got similarities, but they're also got something that pushes them really heavily apart from each other, and we're going to get those 3 in a glass in front of us, and
yeah, we're just really simplifying a very complex landscape into 3 kind of rough big buckets, if you like. And the reason for that is that when someone is coming into whiskey, what you want to do is offer them those extreme bookend type contrasts, because then they start to believe and feel that they're part of it, because they are. They can taste the difference in the whiskies. And when you start to talk about vanilla being prominent on one, and you talk about the smoke and the ash and the peat flavors on another, and you talk about the Christmas spices on the third one, they can taste that. They start to taste beyond the alcohol burn. They start to taste beyond the generic whiskey notes and flavors that they're getting. And they start to come in and say, wow, there is something in this. I am capable of tasting a difference.
Yeah, and I've had I don't know. I'm guessing probably at least 50 random points of contact with people, messages, emails, comments, since we declared that we were going to be doing this tasting thing, saying that along the lines of, I'd love to join in, but I'm no sommelier. My palate's crap. And to every single one of you, I call bullshit. It is a learned thing. It does take some time, but you are 100% capable of doing this. My actual sense of smell and my actual sense of taste are horrible, like atrocious.
Me too.
And I somehow managed to fake my way through some of this crap. So,
well, I'm probably a bit like you. I'm constantly finding myself in company that do it way, way better than I do. They're just so much more accomplished. They're so much more dialed in. But honestly, it comes with practice.
It really does, yeah.
And the biggest thing, though, Jesse, you're absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the head. You need to be in an environment, or you need to create an environment where you're not going to feel silly or be called out for trying to dial in on what you're tasting.
Yeah.
You might taste something fruity, but you don't really know what fruit. But if you're in company with somebody who's doing the same thing, that suddenly they start to talk about kind of melons or green apples or something, and then you get dialed in and you say, yeah, that's what I'm after. And as a kind of doing it in company where you can be confident to vocalize and know that you can't make a mistake. You can't make a mistake. The only mistake you can make is by inventing something if you don't taste it. If you don't taste anything, that's okay. It's valid. Just be in company. Be in a confident place to vocalize and articulate what you're tasting and smelling, regardless of how bizarre it may be. I was at my dining room table a couple of years ago with somebody who was just coming in and start really enjoying this whole story that I'm weaving. And he said, look, I'm getting it, Roy, I'm getting it. But tell me, honestly, what do you taste in whiskey? And that was quite a profound thing because it's difficult to answer, right? It's kind of, so I was going to go into chapter and verse and I didn't. And I just said everything. And immediately his reaction was, "It's nonsense. Come on, don't." And I said, literally anything, any tasting note you can come up with, any smell, any aroma. If I haven't tasted or smelled it inside a whiskey, I can pretty much recall a time that somebody has, or we've been in the neighborhood and we start to talk about metallic things and chemical things, bark, wood, silage, all these bizarre notes. Yes, it can exist in a glass of whiskey. It really, really can. And I remember having that discussion, and I remember him leaving that night, maybe not being able to taste that, but at least believing that it was true.
Yeah. I sorry, I've realized that I just pulled these glasses out of the dishwasher and they're a little bit manky, so I'm sacrificing some Johnny Walker to rinse them out.
Okay too.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. And this is the hard part when you're trying to communicate sometimes, right? As there's literally anything you've ever experienced is potentially fair game to describe what you're tasting. So having whiskey tasters tend to sort of gravitate towards a common lexicon, I guess. And I think there's a danger in that, but there's also a power in that it's much easier to say something that is 90% correct to what you're thinking, but the other person knows what you mean by it, rather than throwing something out that, it could be completely different.
Exactly.
But anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got the smoke in my glass, Roy. What have you got in your glass at the moment?
The same. I have the Lafroig 10.
Okay, cool.
And what I've been smelling in a lot of my smoky whiskies recently, I'm really tuned and dialed into it. And I'm getting a wee bit of that tonight, but this is quite a softer thing compared to what I've been drinking recently. 40% ABV, this Lafroig 10, so it's gentle, it's soft, there's not a lot of ABV, there's not a lot of heat jumping out the glass. But there's a mineralic rock pool salinity here that makes you start to think about coastal environments, cool breezes and salty air, that kind of almost seashell type mineralic note. Usually, if I put my nose in a Lafroig, what I'll get from a Lafroig 10 would be closer to a fruity thing. Once you're past the smoke and peat, of course. But I don't know if if you're picking up any kind of mineralic type salinity, kind of brininess, that kind of thing.
Yeah, to me, it's not as strong in the select at the moment. I haven't had any other whiskey for a little while, so it might just be a calibration thing too. But for me, that comes across almost. It always reminds me of having a beach fire, like cooking marshmallows or sausages or something on the beach, cooking with driftwood. And I've never actually figured out if that is because of the fact that you're mixing the smoke and the salinity together, like literally burning seaweed or something like that, and all of those aromas are being volatilized and smoked at the same time, or whether it's just the environment that you're sitting in, and I don't know. It's been a while since I've had a bonfire on the beach. I'll have to do that again and find out.
Yeah, well, you're coming into your springtime, so you're going to have the opportunity to do that.
But it's funny you said seashell, because it reminds me of collecting shells. Like having a whole bunch of shells off the beach in a bag.
Yes,
and that smell that's almost pungent and rotten fish. Like it hints towards it, but it's not nasty.
So that's that rock pool thing.
Yes.
Yes.
It's so funny too, because when you start talking about something like that, that's suddenly what I smell. Like the human mind is so leadable and suggestible. Yeah.
But it's part of the fun. What you don't want to do is kind of corral things or force things down in a certain direction. But in order just to kind of try and open up, the discussion a little bit. When you started to talk about the beach fire thing, there is a bit of savoury here in my dram tonight. There's a bit of kind of savoury thing in it too. But we can't get away from the primary things that exist here, and that's kind of medicinal. It's kind of iodine. There is ointment things going on here, all the while mixed up with this quite crude ash thing. And none of that sounds like it could be possibly enjoyable. How can that be enjoyable, right?
And let's straight up say, to some people it's not. And if that's you, that's fine. Some people will drink amazing whiskeys for years and just dislike pretty much the entirety of Islay. So if that's you, that's cool. But even if you think you're not going to like it, I think the point of what we're saying here, Roy, is that at some point in time, sit down with a whiskey that's like this, right? Like sit down with a Lagavulin, sit down with a Lafroig, sit down with an Ardbeg, and just experience it for the sake of seeing that it's different. And for me, anyway, quite often it's easier to taste a flavor when suddenly it's missing than it is when it's apparent. So if you put something that's a smoke bomb next to something that has no smoke in it whatsoever, it's almost like sometimes I can't taste the smoke, but then you go to the other whiskey and say, what's missing, what's different, what's changed, and that's when the flavor kind of pops out to you. That's
interesting. You say that, and that's what sipping in contrast is going to help you to do, is to kind of have once you start to dial out certain categories of flavor or things, sipping in contrast backwards and forwards often helps you find that through the contrast. It's really interesting that the reason that these super smoky whiskies exist is very simply down to fuel source. You know, in the Highlands of Scotland, and certainly on West Coast islands like the island of Islay itself, the fuel source that they had, if you've ever been there, there's not much in the way of trees. It's quite a brutal climate that they have. It doesn't really get extremely cold. It doesn't get warm in the summer either. It's quite temperate, but it gets brutalized by wind and rain, by this very oceanic climate. So, you know, what they use for fuel is peat, and peat is decomposed organic matter that's been compacted over time. It's not quite coal, but it's it's a fairly decent fuel source, let's say. And when they were drying the barley, when they were cooking their food, when they were heating their house, you know, the smell of that peat smoke, that peat reek, was literally everywhere in their lives. It was an incidental part of their lives. It wasn't intended to flavor the whiskey. It was it was a serendipity type thing. It's their fuel source. And through that kind of incidental thing, we ended up with a genre, a style, a profile of Scotch whiskey that ended up being a cornerstone. I mean, most of the blends that you have out there have at least a little bit of that style of whiskey in there. Even today, the JW Black that we've touched upon has a wee bit in. And it exists. It's there for a very, very natural reason. It's not been forced. And there was a time that it was completely out of fashion. Nobody wanted to drink Islay heavily peated whiskies. It was only seen as a seasoning for blends. But now, in the last 20 years, 25, 30 years, it's become super fashionable and super sought after.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. All right, so if we are going to taste, I know we got this bottle here, Roy, so I feel like I should pour a wee dram of this.
Then you're going to have me doing an uncorking, and I need to make sure I'm going to uncork the right one. So I shall. I don't have any of this. Oh no, Jesse, I'm going to. Do you mind if I check? I might have some open.
Go for gold, man. I'll explain what it is first. Yeah. So when Roy and I were first talking about this, we decided that we wanted something sherried to be in this triangle because of the fact that it is such, in Roy's words, a hook. And that meaning that it's such a very specific note that you can almost instantly pull out a whiskey for, you know, anyone you can grab them and sit down and put 3 whiskeys next to each other, one Speyside, one sherried, and one Islay, you know, heavily peated thing, and you'll be able to get the differences between them instantly. Roy talked me into splurging a little on this bottle. It's one. I think it was. You were saying this was your Scotch of the year last year, wasn't it, Roy?
I did say to you, if you don't like it, I'll refund you the money, didn't I?
You did, yeah. And you are not you're not going to be out of pocket, mate. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you found one. There you go.
Yes. I've got some left. This will be appearing in a recycled review soon.
So, yeah, this is I think it was $123 New Zealand or something, which, to be fair, for me at the moment is a little more than I'm generally spending on a bottle. That's for sure. But I'm glad I did, because this is delicious. And you can tell as soon as you pour it that it's a sherry bomb. It really is.
But it's so completely different from the Lafroig that we've just been sipping.
And that is the entire point of putting these next to each other, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Let's get all three at the same time. Should we just go with the monkey shoulder, Roy?
I don't have monkey shoulder handy, but it doesn't matter. I'm very familiar with monkey shoulder, so
okay, cool.
It's easy for me to talk through it. Now, monkey shoulder is going to have probably a bit of sherry matured product in there, just for the sake of being
a blend
accurate. Monkey shoulder isn't a single malt. Monkey shoulder is a blended malt, so that's malts from more than one location has been put together to make that. It's from Grant's, the same people that make Glenfiddich, so it's likely that that's going to be from Glenfiddich, from Balvenie, from Caninvie. Maybe nowadays some malt from Ailsa Bay. They've got a huge complex in Ailsa Bay as well. So it's mixed malts. Whereas the other two whiskies that you're having tonight, Lafroig and Glendronach, that's a product of a single location, malt whiskey from a single location. So it's a single malt. It's really a geographical term there. So, I mean, when you go into
it's so crazy. The Lafroig smells completely different to me after sticking my nose in the other two.
And is it not? So you're at a stage suddenly where you're not even smelling suddenly three different genres of the same drink. You can convince yourself that you're not even in the same ballpark. These are three
100%.
different drinks.
Yeah. Completely different. You may as well be drinking beer, wine, and cider at this point.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the point, right? Is that you're trying to drive people so far apart from each other. There's no way that someone can sit down in front of these three glasses and say they just all taste like whiskey.
Absolutely.
And once you get to that point,
even if they do still come away saying yes, they all taste like whiskey. Which, let's be honest, if it's a beginner, then there's a high chance that they would, but they would still have to admit that clearly they can define that there are differences there with really heavily smoky, peaty Islay, very rich, decadent sherry style, all those spices and things in there. Yeah. I'm reminded as I sipped some of that Glendronach tonight, I'm reminded that there's a lot of sweet sherry in there too. That's the Pedro Jimenez element. Bringing a much sweeter style. The Oloroso tends to be a more kind of drier, spicier style of sherry, so that those all have an impact on the whiskey that's matured. And this Glendronach has been in that cask for 15 years minimum.
Just to cut you off for a second there, Roy. Don't stress, Eric. The four whiskies that you got are still the ones for the challenge. Actually, let's just give it a quick rundown, because we're gonna have some different people in the chat right now. Roy's here. We're just talking generally at the moment about how to get people into tasting whiskey. And what we're doing is we've poured three whiskies that are all Scotch, but are about as far apart as can possibly be from each other. For the people that say that it all just tastes like whiskey or it all just tastes like Bernie, this is what we're suggesting that you go out and try. So get a smoky Islay, get a sherry bomb, and get something that's on the I guess on the more smooth, mellow, sweet side of things. And
Glenmore G10 is a good one because it's fully only ex-bourbon cask mature.
So don't worry, dude. We're going to go through it was the Starward Nova, the Johnnie Walker Black Label, the Monkey Shoulder, and what is the one I'm missing? The Cedar Ridge Iowa Bourbon. That's all coming up soon. Don't worry. You haven't got those in vain. Sorry,
this is just the starter, the preamble, right?
Yes. After Roy's here for another 20 odd minutes, and then Lindsay's jumping on, and then depending on how drunk I am by the end of it, I'll be sticking around until people don't want me anymore. So,
instead of me leading you like I did with the Lefroy on tasting notes on that Glendronach, let me say, and obviously, Jesse, I think you know that nothing you're going to say is going to be wrong. There's going to be some associations that you're making as you smell it. There's things that are familiar that you can't label or articulate. That's fine.
Yep.
But give it a go.
So I'm on the monkey shoulder now. And I have realized that this is one of the ones that we're doing today, guys. So there's a slight cheat sheet going on here. We won't get into too much detail with the monkey shoulder because the entries are still open for those prizes if you want to put your tasting notes into the app. Once again, guys, if you haven't got the app yet, look in the notes on this live stream right now, and it's got the details there to download the app. But we'll go into that more with Lindsay later on. So the monkey shoulder, especially compared to the others, the other two here, is sweeter and lighter. It is less, to me, flavors kind of fall into, I guess, three main categories. Sorry. One is kind of like the light flavors, one is the dark flavors, and then the third is kind of the metallic and chemical flavors, and that's sort of most everything. And I guess I'd put wood in there as well because that doesn't quite fit into everything, although it overlaps with some things. And what I mean by light is I tend to think of it more on almost on the sugar scale. So light would be pear, apple, honey, vanilla kind of straddles it, but then you get into the dark flavors, which are chocolate, plum, fig, all of those kind of flavors, just to sort of describe where I'm coming from. So
it's like top notes and base notes, right? It's this kind of
high and low, light, dark, and this is much brighter. It is much lighter. So I'm getting kind of like pear, and there's almost like what are those things that used to come in the Christmas hampers? Candied orange.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess they're like dried orange slices with sugar all over them.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
Or the kind of heading towards toffee, but not quite that dark.
You should be getting a little bit of vanilla,
definitely vanilla, and
maybe a light lick of oak as well.
Yeah, the oak is more. It's not oak candy. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say wood shavings, but heading in that way somewhat.
Yeah. I said I wouldn't lead you, and then I
did you? That's fine. There's also a mustiness to it.
A mustiness. Well, that's interesting because mustiness, people that are not in the Scotch environment, they don't drink a lot of Scotch, if they're into bourbon, if they're into certain world whiskies or whatever, when they come into the Scotch, even Scotch whiskies that taste very clean and fresh to me, some people can get a mustiness, either a malty mustiness or a Dunnage Warehouse type mustiness. They pick that up.
I get it more on the palate, and it is more on the it's not musty like old lady musty, old rot or mildew musty at all. It's a malt mustiness to me, and I get it more on the flavor. Yeah. So then if I jump over to,
this is the one I'm interested in because this is the one you spent the big bucks on. So
yeah, and it is very decadent, and it's heading towards the sticky, dark, sugary side of things. It's also got lots of stone fruit, like dark stone fruit, through to dried dark stone fruit, plums, figs. Actually, probably not so much fig.
Prunes and prune juice, prune and syrup,
which I think is a pretty safe thing to throw out there anytime you've got sherry cask, right?
But I mean, it's when you can talk about dried fruits and things. You can talk about dried citrus and citrus rinds and orange skin and orange peel, all of these things. But here in this Glendronach, there is a sweet syrupiness to it that takes that dried fruit element and puts it in a juice or a syrup. And then when it arrives on the palate, the texture reinforces that syrupiness, I think. And it's not until
it's very much
finished that it transfers. it kind of brings out the spice on the finish on the back end. So the
but
sweetness kind of develops into a spice.
It is like prune juice, but you can almost feel the prune juice being sticky and thick on the finish. And I think the fact that it is quite a high-bodied whiskey, the mouthfeel contributes to that too, you know. It leads you on that suggestion.
Absolutely.
So I think the interesting thing here is that it is very much on those dark fruit flavors compared to this, which is very much on the light. This is orchard fruit to me.
Yes.
And when I say orchard, I mean like pear and like pear and wildflowers, and walking through a pear orchard is kind of what this brings to me. This is like cooking fruit cake with man.
Yeah, a major component of that monkey shoulder is going to be Glenfiddich. And
okay,
the note to find in Glenfiddich is orchard fruit, pear. Absolutely.
So if you just had these two next to each other, you would find two worlds apart completely. But I will say, like we said before, this is a $120 bottle of scotch. And if you're just getting into it, I decided to treat myself to this. So this is a treat for me. What would you suggest for someone to go and find the biggest, boldest, the most sherry bang for buck? What would you suggest for people if they wanted to follow that?
I have to say, when it comes to that kind of clean, decadent, well presented sherry bomb, you're holding it in your hands right now. It is expensive, but we're talking bang for buck. If you're going to go down a little bit cheaper, there are options out there. Glendronach, the 15-year-old that we're drinking right now, the expensive one, Glendronach, also do a 12-year-old. Glengoyne will do, they do 10, 12-year-old product as well. The 10 is fully European oak sherry cask. The 12 is American and European oak, if I remember well. So there's cheaper products there down at £30, £35 for those. Glendronach 12 is about that price as well. You can also find lots of Glenfarclas that are really well priced. Again, another Speyside distillery that's firmly associated with maturation of Scotch whisky and sherry casks. So Glenfarclas is a good place to go as well. What you will find with sherry matured whisky, when they're naturally presented, of course, when they're natural colour, is that you can see the colour, the difference in colour as well between that light bourbon. You might see better on your camera, Jesse, against the darker, richer sherry. So that can be a giveaway as well. So even if it's something that I've not mentioned, be careful though, because there are Scotch producers out there that will add colour to their whisky. They claim for consistency. It's easy to see how that could be employed cynically, but you don't need to get into the weeds with that yet. You can just speak to whoever you're buying your whisky from and just ask them outright, I'm interested in sherry cask, I'm interested in a spicy dark fruit experience, or I'm looking for lighter, brighter, or I'm looking to go all out and head over to Isla and get my act on, right?
This is interesting, going back to the Lefroy now, because before, to me, it was almost before having these two, it was almost a sweet smoke, a sweet and sweet, earthy, and that salinity thing going on.
Well, I think there is a sugar there. There is a white sugar thing there on my Lefroy.
Now it's gone ashen though, like deep, like cigar ashtray, and
especially on the finish, right?
Yeah. I haven't even had a sip yet, but also herby, like it's a herbaceous. It almost smells like if you made a big bundle of parsley and sage,
bruised leaves, absolutely,
and then threw that on top of a fire and let it all go. It's kind of like that.
And you talk about
none of those flavors are apparent in either of the other two whiskey. And again, guys, this isn't us being wanky, and I'm not like diving and pulling these things up because I'm trying to convince myself to taste them. It's just what happens when you pour these three things next to each other.
When somebody accuses you of being wanky, just ask for an hour of their time and an open mind.
Yeah.
Provide the whiskey, right?
Yeah, it really is. So I'm aware that we're getting close to wrapping up, although I haven't seen Lindsay yet, so I'm not sure.
So we've only have we to talk about this black label or not? Have we to?
We may as well. Yeah, why not? And the reason we wanted to talk about this is because this is not what it once used to be, is it, Roy?
Well, I think there's an inevitability in whiskey. It's like anything else. We're talking about an organic product, and we're also talking about an organic product that has, changed for various reasons over the years. But we're speaking about an organic product that is matured inside another organic product.
Yeah, very much so.
So, we can't. If we talk about whiskey changing over the years, there are various dynamics involved there. So it's not always kind of holding up a gun to a producer or the industry and saying that they're screwing things up. But there has been an inevitability that they do often change for the sake of efficiency, or they chase more homogenized flavors in order to provide the same consistent blend at the end of the day. Whereas people that are interested in malt whiskey for malt whiskey's sake, we're chasing variation and much more natural presentation. So let's be clear here. There are no bad whiskies. There are no poor quality whiskies when it comes to Scotch, Irish, bourbon whiskies. These are all very, very clearly defined categories that you can't really step far outside. There are some that are better than others, but generally we're talking about good quality product. But the one that you held up here looks a lot like this, Jesse. This is a contemporary bottle of Johnnie Walker Black Label.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that looks real similar.
Blended Scotch whiskey. So this is made up of a bulk-produced grain spirit that is still aged in oak for a minimum of 3 years. Still Scotch whiskey, but it's produced from mixed whole grains, wheat, corn, some barley. And it's produced in an industrial way to make a very high-proof, clean spirit, a bulk spirit that makes a foundation for blends. And then on top of that, they've added in malt whiskies here to flavour and dress this. And the percentage varies depending on the blend that you have. I would imagine that Johnnie Walker is going to have about 60-65% grain and then be topped up with malts.
Okay.
There's an age statement on here that everything is 12 years old. So the youngest component in this whiskey, even the grain, is a minimum of 12 years old. But if we look at this bottle, it looks very, very similar. But this is just a very consistent branding. This was bottled in the early 90s. So the chances, what we have here is late 70s, 1980s distillate. So this is going back. This is a little sip of history here. And when you taste these two whiskies in contrast to each other, it's not even in the same category.
Yeah, right.
It's absolutely incredible, and there are a few reasons for that. You might remember in the 80s, Scotch whiskey went right out of fashion. Nobody was buying it. They were on to vodka, sparkling wines, cocktails. Whiskey, brown spirits became an old man's drink, and it pretty much died in a very short space of time. That meant they were left with a rich, deep pool of maturing stocks, and that's the stocks that they drew from to make this blend back in the 1990s. Whereas now they're drawn from shallower, much more carefully managed stocks. Yes, it still has to be 12 years old. So even when you just think about in the context of history, before we've even tasted the whiskies, we know there's probably going to be a significant difference there. And wow, on the palate, it really plays out.
Yeah. How do I put it? I'm very firmly the sort of person that says there's a time and a place for damn near everything. And I think this came from like my experience with craft beer, and that, people love to hate on all the big breweries and stuff. So yeah, I get it. Like there's a time and a place for it. And I will say probably about 3 years ago, I had a bottle of this and I quite enjoyed it. And I doubt very much it's changed in that time. But when I tasted this for the purposes of this, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but it was just a little bit like talking to myself.
Yeah,
I'd have to say.
You've changed.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, yeah.
Not only is it probably a more demanding palate, you're also probably left a little bit blends at 40%. They can be a little bit anemic.
Yeah.
When you start down a malt journey where you're looking for ABV to bring extra texture and grip and flavor and communicate with your palate, that becomes quite quite an addictive thing. You start to really enjoy that grip that comes with higher ABV. So when you switch back suddenly to a 40% blend, the blend's having to work a lot harder to keep your attention compared to what it was a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah. I need to say a big sorry to everyone that was wanting to ask Roy questions. We were going to have time for Roy to ask questions, and now we've only got 5 minutes. So we got 5 minutes of Q&A, and then Lindsay, I see you backstage. We'll be bringing you on shortly. I'm getting a smile and a nod, so we know she's and a wave. Excellent. But very quickly, guys, I'm about to drop Roy's channel link in the chat. So if you've enjoyed Roy's whimsical waftings about whiskey, please jump on over and subscribe to that channel. At the moment, he does mostly live streams called V-Pubs, which are awesome. But there's a few of us trying to lean on Roy for some more videos. So jump on over there, subscribe up, and see what we can do.
Yeah, nobody comes to the channel for short and succinct, but today I put out a video. It's not the most polished, but it's about as good as you're going to get from me. Today I put out it launches a new series. That was launched to patrons today, and then probably tomorrow or the next day it will go public. And that's kind of me moving in the direction to try and find platforms to bring shorter content out there, similar to the recycled reviews and things. But generally, people don't come to my channel for short and succinct, for sure.
They do come for great guests. You have a lot of interesting people from the industry and from the community on those V-Pubs. So quickly, guys, if you have any questions for Roy, fire away in the comments.
I can see my friend Phil, First Phil Whiskey. He's a fellow Kiwi. He's down in New Zealand. I got to hang out with Phil a few weeks ago. He's got a channel. He's doing great content as well. If you're interested in for generalized whiskey concepts, you're coming into the whiskey scene, you want to understand the differences in Scotch whiskey, what cask strength is, that kind of thing. First Phil Whiskey is in the chat tonight. He's doing some great content.
Yes, Roy introduced me to your channel last time we talked, Roy, and I had a quick look. Production value is amazing, dude. Awesome work. Hope to see more from you, man. Real slick. Yeah. I'm just going to scroll back and see. Oh, there's one. What are your thoughts on? There you go, Roy. You should be able to see that. I'll start hunting for another one.
12-year-old Glenmorangie. So what happens is that Glenmorangie have this really cool model where they have this 10-year-old product, ex-bourbon matured, and then they have a range that's slightly higher age. So 12-year-old, they have La Santa, they have well, the Quinta Ruban is port cask, so I think they've bumped that up to 14 years. It used to be 12 years, depending on where you are. It might still be 12. And they all have they also have Nectar d'Or. La Santa is sherry cask. Quinta Ruban, as I say, is port, and Nectar d'Or is Sauterne, I think. Sauterne cask, going from memory. So it's different cask effects on the same spirit. So the Glenmorangie spirit is still there. That same base 10-year-old is foundation, and then they've got these extra cask elements. So just in the Glenmorangie range, in its own range, without talking about peat or anything like that, they've got these wonderful contrasts that you can taste where the cask has changed the shape of the spirit. I have to say, Glenmorangie do a decent job. I don't talk enough about Glenmorangie.
Where are we here? Oh no. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Terry.
Jock B is asking what my favourite Perthshire whiskey is. So that's a difficult thing, because there was a lot of Perthshire whiskey at one stage. Perth used to be a cradle of whiskey, but this was back in the days where blending, blending is still the big thing in Scotch, but Perth used to be a cradle. I would say up in Perthshire now, you've got Aberfeldy, they're doing okay things. Edradour is very interesting, lots of stuff coming out of Edradour, but there's a fantastic distillery there owned by Diageo called Blair Athol. And Blair Athol can be one to look out for. You would have to, there's only one official bottling from Diageo, a Blair Athol 12, a Flora and Fauna release. but you could probably pick up a Blair Athol as an independent bottling. We didn't even touch on independent bottlings tonight.
Yeah, we might have to do another one, Roy.
Yeah.
Got a question from one of the Patreons. Roy, what in your opinion makes a great whiskey? And does that shake out to be the same thing in your experience? So in theory, I guess, what makes a good whiskey? And then does your actual experience of just
I'll answer it in the context of Scotch. Is that okay?
Yep, of course.
I would have to say there's a wanky answer here, and that is any whiskey that's open. There is too many whiskey. You can see too many whiskeys you see over my shoulder right now that are kept sealed. They're ornamental. They're collector's pieces.
Yeah.
They're being bought for investment or that special moment that never comes. And we have to remember that whiskey is a very sensory thing. It only exists to connect with our primary senses and remind us what it is to be alive. So getting that whiskey open is the first thing. So any whiskey that's open. But I have to say that in my experience and where I am in my whiskey journey now, I'm kind of looking for something that's been in a quiet cask, in a quiet, cold, damp warehouse for a good number of years, teenage years minimum. But the spirit is still strong. So the cask has influenced the spirit over those years, but it's not overtaken. It's still in balance. And it's been there long enough that the environment has had a bit of voice as well. So that's kind of the experiences that I'm chasing just now. So very much, I still enjoy my bold, brutal, heavy, loud whiskies, but I love subtle, creamy, delicate whiskies that flicker and switch sip by sip. That complexity. There are shortcuts to complexity, sure, but in the Scotch whiskey landscape, there is no shortcut. Leave it in a nice cask in a nice spot for long enough, and it'll sing. That's my favorite thing.
And lastly, from Chris, do you have an opinion on wild and sour ferments? So lacto, anything like that. Have you come across any specific whiskeys that state that they do or do not do this? Do you have an opinion on it?
That's something that it's difficult for me to even approach and answer on, because it's not something that I spend any time looking into. We talk about, it's interesting that the yeast has suddenly become something that people are starting to talk about. So fermentation and the type of yeast that's being used. I recently tried a wonderfully fruity Loch Lomond that had used wine yeast. There's a huge argument that the old brewers' yeasts are the best, but that's there's so much nostalgia. It's difficult to separate. Was it really the yeast, or was it lots of other things? Because more often than not, a much more efficient production for fermentation is to use distillers' yeasts and things. So in your question, I'm not the best person to answer that. I don't have even a library of experiences that I can lean on for that there. Fermentation is more your bag, Jesse.
Well, I think it's kind of a case that it seems like you have a great strength in knowing what people have talked about and advertised in their own whiskey. So if they're doing something that they think is exciting and they're talking about it, you've got a good reference between what they're saying and then what actually turns up in the bottle, and whether or not that really makes a difference or whether it's just marketing mumbo gumbo, right? And I think traditionally fermentation is something that was just not really talked about. It's a new thing that's starting to come up. And it's the way it is with whiskey, right? You're going to have to wait 12 years before you know.
If you're an established brand, you're much more interested in protecting that brand than you are talking about crazy yeasts.
Yeah.
If you're a new distillery that's trying to differentiate yourself, and or if you're kind of building a brand, then you're more likely to be talking about experimental concepts like that, because your market is probably, you're going to be less mass market focused and more enthusiast focused. So, but honestly, anything that brings variation, variety, anything that could potentially bring that next epiphany, I'm all over it. That's what I'm chasing. That's what I'm interested in. Chasing that craft.
Yeah, man. All right. A huge thank you to Roy, guys. Thank you for being here, Roy. and I know that we did that completely off the cuff. So yeah, sorry guys, we waffled, but
I waffle.
we made it work. And dude, if nothing else comes out of it, I am super glad that I got to try this. This is well worth it for me.
Well, that's good. I don't need to send you any PayPal to reimburse you.
No, you don't. All right. Cheers, Roy. Thank you so much, my friends. Always a pleasure to be able to talk to you, mate. And hopefully we can have a dram in person sometime.
It is always a pleasure, Jesse. I miss you, big guy. I'll see you soon. Take care. Cheers.
See you, mate. Lindsay!
Hey!
Surprise, you're live.
Here I am. Hi.
I did quickly check to make sure that you were,
that I was decent.
not picking your nose or something.
It's doing me a solid. Hi, Jesse. Good to see you.
You too. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you again. For those of you that don't know, Lindsay and I recorded a podcast a little while ago, which I would thoroughly recommend you go back and check out later on if you're at all interested in any of the things that we're going to talk about today. But the main reason we're here is that we have set up it's a little competition, I guess, with your app Sampleox, which is exciting.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's pretty fun. I guess I can give a little bit of background about Sampleox and just generally
have at it.
What I'm doing here.
actually, before you do that, I just want to say too, there was people in the comments getting confused about what's going on, and people that have turned up. The idea is that we are not going to do the tastings with you guys. So if you want to enter the quote unquote competition, I do have a list of prizes here to give away based on what happens today. You need to get your sensory submission in before we get to talking about the tasting. So Lindsay and I are going to we're going to give you some help with the app if you need it. We're going to talk general sensory science, but we're not going to walk you through how to taste those spirits until after the competition closes. Excuse me. And then at that point in time, it may just be me by then drinking solo here, but we can walk through the actual flavor tasting notes that the people submitted as well. But if you do want to be in to win, or just for bragging rights, you need to log into the app now and have at it at your own leisure. So you've still got a solid hour before we get to that point in time, guys. So go for gold. If you have any questions about that, feel free to drop them in the chat right now. I will monitor the chat for a little while Lindsay gives us a background on the app, just so you know. Cool? Does that work for everyone? I hope it works for everyone. Sorry, Lindsay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
no, all good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have at it.
All right. Well, so we will be tasting, you guys will be tasting 4 different whiskeys. I've done a couple already.
Nice.
So, so just go ahead and download Sampleox, Sampleox, and the 4 whiskeys that we're going to be tasting. I'm sure they're in the chat as well.
They're down in the description below this video, guys, or below the live stream. And the link to download the app is there as well, along with the join code. So once you're logged in, signed in, at the very top of the app, it'll ask for a join code. And that's where you put that. I think it's a 4-digit code, isn't it, Lindsay?
Something like that.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's down below this video anyway, guys. If you put that in, it'll take you to the event, and you'll be able to, go from there.
Yep. And so basically what Sampleox is all about is it's kind of very multifaceted. It's really created for the 2 different sides of product development. One side in the whiskey world, of course, is distillers, and the other side is it's the consumers. And really what we're trying to do is give distillers, brewers, winemakers, a little bit of access to what is going on with your brain and your sensory experience. So we want to know, as producers, how much do you like something, and then what are the attributes that you're liking about it? So what are those drivers of liking? And conversely, what are those drivers of disliking, so that we maybe don't integrate that thing into our products? And so Sampleox is just a really simple way of giving the producers that you're drinking the ability to kind of have access to your opinions. And hopefully you're enthusiastic to give them, because ultimately it's up to consumers to shape the way our products are going to be tasting in the future. And that's kind of what I'm all about as a sensory scientist, and creating tools to make it easier for us to have a hand in product development as consumers. So it should be fun and exciting and engaging to you. You also kind of get access to the producers' brains as well. So part of the competition is just seeing how closely you rated a sample next to the rating of the professional. So hopefully we'll be able to learn a little bit about, what the producers of what's in Jonnie Walker's brain, and, and also, what the producers of Monkey Shoulder think is making up their product. And you will be able to kind of compare yourself to their evaluation and test yourself against them. And that's kind of where all the competition comes in. So hopefully, we're all on different sides of the globe. We can kind of be able to connect and taste something together and see how we all stack up to each other. And it's all, for fun. And just knowing that you're actually having an ability to integrate your opinion into the product development process of these producers. So yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, that's kind of the gist of the Sampleox thing.
Yeah, so we've kind of hijacked it a little bit. It's really not intended for random YouTubers to have competitions with, but it's cool. It, as someone said earlier on, that it's a great way, especially with COVID. Sorry, I've forgotten who it was that said it, to bring people together a little bit. And that's kind of the entire point of this live stream and the event we've got going on. I'm just going to log in now and have a quick look and see.
Oh yeah, I was just in.
Oh yeah, looks like we've got maybe about 70 people or 70 tastings submitted, which could be anywhere between, I don't know, what's that, 15 and 70 individual people. Yeah. But that's cool, guys. That's really cool. I was kind of figuring if we had about 50 all up, then we could call it somewhat of a success. So if anyone is still there and still needing to submit, by all means, go along and do that. Now, I did just see someone say that, oh, here he is. Dan screwed up and submitted before it was done. So I already got a half a score. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, dude, because I think it's set so that you can't change your change things once you've done. Lindsay, I don't think there's any way around that, is there?
I think we may have set it such that, hold on a second. I'm gonna do some magic.
Okay, can you find him, can you? And reset it for him?
Well, what you guys can all do, Dan, if you go back and if you refresh the app, I think you might be able to do it again, because I just changed a setting that will allow you to go back and do it. Yeah, it should work. So Dan, you're in luck.
Have at it, dude. I was going to be a hard ass, man. I was going to say you're out of luck. You're done. And I was potentially thinking about doing a spot prize or something. All right, guys. So just to let you know, first place overall, Lindsay, I forgot to ask you, can we see first place for each spirit or just for the entire?
Just for the entire event. I was actually thinking about that on a walk today. That would be kind of a cool thing to do, but it's just for the entire event. So unfortunately, if you were only able to get one or two of the spirits, then you're probably at a little bit of a disadvantage. But unless you're just like a stellar taster. But yeah, it's for the event.
So first place is going to get a one of the new Chase the Craft Glencairn glasses and a badge, one of the Chase the Craft badges. Second place is getting a glass, and I also have a bunch of other things to help give away. Steve, my man, dude, that's awfully generous of you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And also, Texas.
Yeah.
We're sorry we couldn't be there for the Bastards Ball this year, dude. I'm assuming that you at least know where that is, seeing as you're from Texas. But yeah, keep on keeping on up there, dude. Oh well, there we go. Yeah, okay, guys. So I think what we'll do is let's say that the first prize and the second prize, if you had 2 or more bottles, you're probably doing pretty well for that. So the spot prizes. I'll reserve spot prizes for people that only had. What do you think, Lindsay? Should we do for 1 bottle or 1 or 2 bottles? Let's do 1 or 2 bottles.
Sure.
Yeah, I ask you your opinion and then shut you out.
Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah. So we missed something on the podcast that we talked about wanting to do, and then we didn't do it, which was to talk about the difference between retronasal and olfactory. I guess it is it?
Yeah, so let's you want to nerd out about sensory science?
Let's nerd out about sensory science. I'm really interested to see if our viewer numbers go like this or like this. I don't know. I like to think that we have a lot of nerds around here. Nerds and geeks are kind of what make this hobby tick. So yeah,
well,
let's talk about it.
Why don't we go through the evaluation while drinking whiskey? So
okay, yeah. What are you drinking, by the way, Lindsay?
I'm drinking the Black Label, the Johnnie Walker Black Label.
Okay, cool.
Or I also grabbed something else, but I'll just drink that.
I'm not going to mix that because that is delicious. Let's do this.
There you go.
Well. So maybe you guys can sneak a few. Oh, sorry, I should say, guys. Okay, so the Nova, if people got hold of the Nova, the tasting notes that are in there are from Sam. He is the person that makes that whiskey, the head distiller. The Monkey Shoulder is done by Daniel Whittington over on the Whiskey Tribe and the Whiskey Vault. Inside joke there, if you guys know what's going on there. The Black Label was done by Roy, who gave us the tasting notes for those, which was awesome. Unfortunately, Murphy at Cedar Ridge ran into some problems with literally an act of God. They've had some pretty shocking weather events there, and as I understand it, that caused pretty significant problems for him at the distillery. So I did the tasting notes on Cedar Ridge. So just letting you know, guys. Just letting you know. What I did do is pull the tasting notes on their website and a few others as well, just to sort of supplement what I was getting. But yeah, who was it in the chat earlier on that was saying that this damn ball bearing cap thing and the Johnnie Walker Black is atrocious? I don't know who you are, but I 100% agree. I can't stand the thing.
This is the jingle that I hear. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Why?
And then watch this.
Oh no, we hate it.
I just want whiskey.
There we go.
Now I've got the.
That's the consumer study. If they're watching.
Yeah, guys,
we're not down with ball bearing. Good idea. Good
nerd session. Sensory
science. Let's go to the nerd station.
Smelling and tasting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a sensory scientist by trade, and am co-founder of Sampleox and Draft Lab. So two different sensory tools to be able to kind of help you describe your experience. And so what the prompt was just then is, let's just talk about ortho and retronasal olfaction, but I think I can integrate ortho and retronasal olfaction into a description about like how I like to go about just evaluating whiskey, or really evaluating products. And I think everybody kind of has a slightly different way of doing it, and I'll give you a little bit of background about why I do it a certain way. I think we did this last time on the podcast, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the first thing that I like to do is hold the glass a little bit awkwardly to kind of train your brain that you are now in evaluation mode, and you're not just in like this like drinking mode. So I kind of hold it like weird. I do a little pinch and pinky hold. Sometimes hold it with your less dominant hand, and it gets a little weird. So it should feel weird.
And after that podcast, I said that I can't remember. I think I said I do this, but yeah, it's this. I hold it at the bottom,
yep,
and go sideways. After you said that, I went back and watched a few videos, and that's 100% what I do. Yep. And I think that's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. That is actually a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that we just do these things.
Yeah.
And I mean, the first thing that you do is just take note of the color, the clarity, and the legs in this case. And you'll see in Sampleox that the visual questions are: what is the color? What's the clarity? What do the legs look like? Because what we're trying to do is get an understanding of what you're experiencing, and if you like the thing that you're experiencing. And so, color, clarity, there's like a few little particulates, but I think it's just because of my glass gasp. And then the second thing that I like to do is just kind of sneak up on it by doing your orthonasal olfaction. So orthonasal olfaction is really just what we in our common language refer to as aroma. So that's just sniffing in through your nose. So orthonasal into your nose. And then what's happening is all those volatile chemicals are going into your nose and registering in your olfactory bulb, your olfactory nerve, that these are aromas. And we can talk about olfaction a little bit more, but olfaction is just super crazy. There's like still very little understood about how the aroma sense works, but we know that it's very complicated, and we know that it's not necessarily a lock and key. So one chemical can lock onto multiple different neurons and have a register as a sensation, which is really interesting, and vice versa. Many different active sites can register multiple different chemicals. And so what I like to do is kind of do my aroma orthonasal olfaction by smelling into your nose. And I like to sneak up on it, especially with whiskey, because it's so highly aromatic, and there's so many different volatiles, and especially with the high alcohol, you kind of get a lot of that vapor pressure that moves up throughout the glass, and you can get a lot of aroma. So I sneak up on it to kind of not oversaturate your senses. So this is, orthonasal. And then what we were talking about earlier is retronasal olfaction, is just smelling in reverse. And we often refer to that as taste. So for example, if you're about to say this tastes like caramel, if you use the preposition like, then you're probably about to describe an aroma. Because taste, strictly speaking, scientifically speaking, is only in reference to your tongue taste. So what are they're non-volatile, and it's just sweetness, sourness, bitterness, salt, umami, and fatty. So those are the only tastes that are recognized as tastes. We're discovering new tastes all the time.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So fatty is new.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because MSG or umami was new, not like what, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, right?
Yeah. And I can go on a tangent on that. In order to be a taste, you have to have a unique kind of neural pathway for you to register it as a taste. You have to have a certain class of chemicals that elicit that specific taste, and that taste can't overlap into the other tastes. So, different types of sugars are still sweet, right?
Right. Okay.
So there can't be overlap there. So, but there are plenty of other. Yes.
So sorry, saying that it can't overlap, does that mean that you actually have the ability, just with your tongue, to taste a difference between sugars? Or is it that it just tastes sweet and then any difference is coming from the retronasal?
That's a really good question, and there's a lot of debate about that in the science
community.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of interesting to me. In my own studies, I got really curious about sourness. I used to work for New Belgium Brewing Company in Fort Collins, Colorado. And we were one of the largest sour beer producers in the United States. So I got really interested in different sour chemicals and how they are perceived by your senses. And so I got pure citric acid, acetic acid, malic acid, succinic acid. So I got all these different organic acids that are sour. And what people have usually said is sour is sour is sour is sour, bitter is bitter is bitter. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's still going to register as bitter. But what we found is that our panelists, could tell the difference between those 4 different organic acids. They registered them as different organic acids, and we were actually able to train panelists to identify citric versus malic versus acetic. Acetic has an aroma, so it's a little bit different, but I don't believe that different bittering molecules have the same sensation. So if you think about like bitter arugula, that bitterness is going to be different than like hop bitterness. And arugula has its different bittering molecules than there are in hops. So in my very few studies, I think that there is a difference between those, but we still register it as sour. There have been some studies,
and that's just on the tongue. So the strict thing of saying that there's only is it 5 traditionally plus now MSG and
Yeah, fatty. So sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami, and fatty. So 6 now. Metallic is a candidate taste. So
Oh
they're
yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
So saying that there's only 5 may be kind of misleading in that there's a gradient within
Yeah.
those. Because I must admit, up until today, I literally thought it was your tongue could taste sour. Full stop. That's it.
Yeah.
And anything that told you that it was lemon versus orange versus vinegar versus whatever, that was entirely aroma, basically. But there's some ground to be covered there, is what you're saying in terms of the science.
There's some ground to be covered, and I recently read a PhD thesis that basically showed the thing that we saw at New Belgium, that sour is not created equal, and so there's we're thinking that bitter is not created equal either, but there's not a lot of research on that. The sour mechanism is a little bit different than some of the other tastes, so sour could potentially be unique, but I mean, it looks like there's some gray within that.
That's exciting, though. Anytime
you
there's stuff
never
like
get
that,
bored.
it's exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never get bored as a sensory scientist.
But now that I've kind of got us somewhat off track, we're going very deep into the weeds down a very specific path, right? Like we're really going into the weeds, I guess. And it is very well established. Tell me if I'm wrong. That like you said, most of what you taste is not actually a taste, right? And which is why you've organized the app the way you've organized the app. Is that correct?
That's a really good distinction to make. Yeah. It's been said that most of flavor perception, or 80% of flavor perception, is aroma, and I think that that's a weird number to throw out, but it kind of seems intuitive, I guess. Most of the nuance that we can pick out between different flavors is going to be basically due to aroma. And so aroma really drives a lot of what we are experiencing and calling our flavor perception. So how we kind of set up the app is to first of all start with liking. How much do you like it? I want your gut reaction on that. I just want like your knee jerk, quick. How much do you like it? And then we have the categories of aroma and taste, and then the flavors are essentially aromas. But what we wanted to do was make sure that you were both smelling and tasting, and getting it on your tongue. If you just categorize them as aromas, most people are just going to smell it and that's it.
Yeah.
And so you have to use language that is understandable. This is all things that I've had to learn by now, developing apps and stuff. But what's cool about this is if you open up the flavors section to see all of those different aromas, you can see that it's categorized by level of complexity. So you kind of start with fruity, and then you open up citrus, and then you can get to orange. So it kind of follows your kind of normal process of evaluating and identifying an attribute. So hopefully it's able to guide you to be a little bit more specific and singular in your flavor descriptions, so that you can really get like a richer experience when you're tasting your products.
This is something that people have used flavor wheels for a long time with, right? And Roy actually mentioned it earlier on. Quite often you'll be drinking something and you'll get this vague, it's fruity. And that's like literally all that your head will let you get to. Like you just can't remember past that in some ways. So having a flavor wheel in front of you, or an app like this in front of you, where you can click on fruity and then it'll bring up, is it stone fruit, orchard fruit, citrus, like melon, and you go, oh crap, yeah, it's totally melon. Click. Oh yeah, it's honeydew. That's exactly what it is. It's 100% honeydew, and you never would have got there without it. So that sort of linear progression to more and more specificity, I guess, is very helpful when you're doing stuff like this. And I just saw someone. Oh, I just clicked the wrong one. God damn it moved. I guess we've got a beer nerd in here, because that's some pretty good pedigree coming from the beer world, man. And I gotta say, being here in New Zealand when I first started getting into craft spirits, New Belgium was one of the things that I was so pissed that I could not get. And when I did get, it had been sitting in a container for, months and months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sad.
So, wish I knew you then.
Yeah, I would have been happy to send you anything. Yeah. So yeah, talking about like flavor wheels and that kind of thing. One of the first things that we do when we kind of go into a new category is look at what the lexicon is. And so in whiskey, what we like to do is called the flavor maps. We make flavor maps, and they're not wheels. I've never really understood why the wheel format is a thing. I think that it's a little bit misleading. Yeah. So basically, what we've done,
you end up with two things next to each other.
Yeah, they're not necessarily
have no right being. Yeah.
Right.
Because what you would think is in a wheel, it would be like a gradual step between each one, right? You put caramel and chocolate next to each other or something. You're like, okay, yeah, I get that. Sure. But then you end up with smoke and peach or something. Like,
right.
What?
Yeah, I've kind of never really understood the structure of the wheel, and I'm not a hater. I think that like what happened with the first wheel that I know of was the beer flavor wheel, and that was produced by Morton Mildgard in the 70s. And then I think everybody just ended up doing wheels after that. So what we've done is we've blown up the wheel, and we have what we call flavor maps. And I think that they're fun, intuitive memory aids. They're also quite beautiful, and they're on our website. So we have a whiskey flavor wheel as well, flavor map.
We've infected you.
Flavor map. Yeah. And that is the terminology that the professionals are using. So what we do is we collaborate with industry members, and we do tastings and generate lexicons by basically working with a bunch of distillers. And so we created that one, I guess, about a year ago, and it's now integrated into the app. So what you are using in the app is kind of the standardized flavor terminology that distillers will use who are Draft Lab users, which is our professional app. Cool. So yes. So aroma.
Yeah, right. Yeah, what we were talking about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. So retronasal olfaction literally just means, in reverse, the same mechanism in reverse. So basically how you do that. So first of all, I like to kind of do this experiment. I'm sure you've done it before, but if you would oblige, then you can plug your nose and take a sip. Let it sit on your tongue for a little while. And then you probably can't taste anything, right? So when we're sick, we say that we can't taste anything, but really we just can't smell anything. So if
it's so funny, you take your fingers off your nose and suddenly you're flooded with
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. If you haven't done that,
try it at home, guys. Try literally if you have a whiskey in front of you.
Yeah.
You don't get to look like a fool in front of other people.
Right.
We'll take that away from you. But give it a go. It really is quite interesting. Hey, I just realized too, Steve, when you did that super chat a little while ago, dude, it looks like your message got cut off. So if you had something else to say, let me know, my man. I missed it. I just got the thanks for everything, and then it just stops. So I wasn't sure if there was a question or a comment that you wanted me to comment on as well. Sorry. Anyway, guys, block your nose, have a sip of whiskey, see what happens.
Yeah, and, it's fun to do with your kids. The kids love it. And so that's retronasal olfaction. So working the same way back through. And so a good way of distinguishing the difference between taste and aroma is to evaluate tastes with your nose plugged. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. But for the sake of the app, just put it in your mouth and have an experience with it as you would normally drink it. Select the things that are happening, select the intensities of the taste that you're getting, submit it, and check out your results. And you'll be able to also see what your peers are saying about the whiskey that you're tasting as well. So kind of fun stuff. Did you want me to nerd out about anything else? I heard you say mouthfeel earlier, and I was like, that's
mouthfeel. I love you like swooning at mouthfeel. Let's do mouthfeel. That was fun.
Yeah, so mouthfeel for you guys in the whiskey world. We have body, so that's kind of the overall thinness or thickness, the weight the density of the product. And so if you can move your tongue through the matrix really easily, then it's thin-bodied, light-bodied. If it takes a little bit, there's a little bit more resistance, then it's a thicker-bodied thing. Alcohol is just referring to the alcohol burn. So what is the burning sensation, and how hot is it? Mouth-watering is as it sounds. It's literally how much saliva does your mouth produce when you put it in your mouth? And this is often correlated with level of sourness or organic acids in product.
I must admit, I never thought of that in terms of whiskey before. But every time I went through and tasted something with the app, and you stop and think about it, it's a very, very specific sensation in your mouth. It's like it's almost like a tension relief. You can feel the saliva excretion. Almost. It's bizarre. It really is, and it is very different from whiskey to whiskey. And it's not something. I think mouthfeel I thought of a lot coming from the beer world. For those of you that don't know, the beer world for this sort of thing is just dominated by BJCP, and I guess how would you describe that? It's like a methodology or an organization that helps judge competitions and compare beers to specific style guidelines. So to carry that over, perhaps Islay would be a style guideline for whiskey, although there's not, don't get me wrong, that's not actually a thing in whiskey. And mouthfeel is a specific thing in BJCP. But yeah, the mouth-watering thing I'd never thought of, and it is very, very intriguing. And to me, it tends to correlate to drinkability a lot. Like, okay, I've had a sip, I've put it down, it's yum, but do I want to put it back in my mouth? Like, and how quickly do I want to put it back in my mouth? It's quite fascinating, and it's a new thing for me to explore. So I've got to look at that more.
Yeah. I mean, solving like the drinkability kind of question is something that's been on the minds of producers forever. And I know we in the beer world used to actually kind of make products that were notably kind of dry, and that like highly astringent. So astringency is actually the next thing, and that really just refers to literally how much salivatory protein is quenched from your tongue, and therefore drying it out, kind of making it a little sandpapery. And I love every time I talk about astringency, my tongue gets dry.
Yeah.
So what we used to do was try to make products that dried out your mouth so that you would take another sip. So like one of those little tricks of the trade. If we want you to keep taking sips, you have to keep moistening your mouth. You're going to make a drier product, but I think it only goes so far, because if you make an overly astringent product, it's going to be like so unpalatable that it's just not going to be that fun to drink. And maybe that whole thing is just being kind of blown out of the water right now with like juicy IPAs and that kind of thing that are highly mouth-watering. So who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, and there was kind of a weird mid thing between the two, in my experience anyway, here in New Zealand, with it used to be like super astringent, super bitter, like teeth-strippingly so IPAs and APAs. And now it's gone through to the juicy sort of side of things. But it went through this weird thing of like wit beers and bitters and like just real crushable, I guess, like sun garden, beard garden sort of style beers, that are like real low body, lower ABV, lower bitterness, fairly highly carbonated, and just crushable. And it's interesting because when you switch over into whiskey, a lot of brands will actively go against that, right? And I guess it's because of the price per bottle, maybe? I don't know. It'd be interesting to get your take on it. But a lot of really highly sought after whiskeys will be like a sipping armchair whiskey, kind of almost like a port, where you pour one dram and let it sit in your glass for an hour and enjoy it. And mind you, then you've got this at the other end of the scale, right, which is the opposite. So
right, this is your crushable.
And cocktails, I guess, is the crusher. I guess, actually that's it. Cocktails mixes would be the crushable side of things, right? Isn't it? If you wanted to go for volume, probably. I don't know. Anyway, once again, I've taking you well off course.
I mean, what Roy was saying earlier was, I think, appropriate to just say like there's a time and place for all these different products.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny with the bitterness thing in the beer world, I guess, or really in any world. I think the trend was highly bitter, and like how bitter can you make it? And I mean, it turns out that like bitter is poison. Like we don't really actually like bitterness. We have to train ourselves to like bitterness. Like it's not, we're not evolved to like bitterness, but we train ourselves to like it because it's usually paired with like caffeine. And so we're like, okay, well, we get the boost out of caffeine, so we're going to love bitterness in coffee. Kind of the similar deal with beer. But when, these low bitter beers were starting to come out, people were like, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't actually like the really bitter thing. I would rather just drink this. So I like that trend. I like that we're no longer posturing about like who's the toughest person who can drink the most bitter thing. And I love the armchair. So an armchair whiskey is something that is kind of a little thicker, and it's a little decadent, hard, maybe like more boozy, a little bit harder to drink. You let it open up, that kind of thing. Those are the armchairs. Yeah,
or even stuff that, like, I would put this in that sort of category. I mean, it's not like actually a category, but like just the way I would describe it. Like, I want to sit down and pour a drink of that and just take a tiny little sip every 5 minutes, and every time you sip it, it's going to taste different, and it's thick and chewy, and yum.
Yeah, and it's just yum. It's just yum.
It's an imperial stout, right?
Yeah,
you don't sit down to crush imperial stouts, or if you do, you're going to have a bad time.
You're going to have a bad time. Yeah.
You're going to have a really good time and then a bad time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how's our tasting going? Let's see.
Yeah, do we get done on the mouthfeel thing? I think we.
I mean, I talked about astringency, and then the spicy thing is the last thing, which is on there, and that I kind of like to differentiate that from alcohol heat and actually have it be literal like capsaicin spice.
Right. Okay.
So that actual like heat tingling sensation that is elicited when you take a bite out of a pepper.
So, from the science side of things, what is the difference between a mouthfeel and a taste? And is it just that you can sense it everywhere where it comes in contact with your mouth? Like you can almost sense astringency or bitterness in your cheeks or under your tongue, or probably at the roof of your mouth. But do you know what I mean? Like what's the
so mouthfeels are processed by the trigeminal nerve that kind of runs down your face. So if you see pictures of like that nerve, it kind of runs down your face. So people who have like major head injuries and actually damage the trigeminal nerve won't have feeling, like won't be able to sense mouth sensations, which is a bummer.
Wow.
It's part of what we expect, and part of what it strongly correlates to consumer acceptance. Like it's hard to accept a cold cup of coffee unless you're, unless you know that that's what you're getting. Unless you order a cold brew. So mouthfeel is sensed by the trigeminal nerve that runs down your face, and they are either chemically induced or physically induced. And so capsaicin spice is an example of a chemically induced mouthfeel sensation. And that's going to elicit that kind of like heat, that warming sensation. A physically induced mouthfeel is like body. So it's like the weight, and that's kind of the proprioception. So where your tongue is in space is what that mouthfeel sensation is, all how it's elicited there. So those are kind of like the two different mechanisms of feeling in your mouth. And taste seems like kind of it seems kind of like rudimentary, but it's not at all. Basically, you have all these little taste buds on your tongue, and you can't actually see your taste buds, but you can see taste pores. And in those taste pores, you have hundreds of taste buds in each of those taste pores. And all of those taste buds are capable of detecting those different tastants. So sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness. And then those register in your brain as a specific taste. And the tongue map used to be a really big thing back in the day.
I was just about to ask about that, like the different areas of the tongue for different tastes, right? And I remember sitting there as a kid and like putting different things in different parts of my taste and thinking, I kind of feel like this is bullshit. But
you were correct.
Oh, really?
You were correct. It turns out it was bullshit. It turns out it was like a mistranslation of this like German paper that was written a while ago, and it was just like taken out of context and just basically misused. It seems intuitive, you know, like sourness kind of being on the sides of your tongue and sweetness kind of being the back and bitterness in the front. I think that's what it was. It seems kind of intuitive, but a lot of studies have been done since then. And you were a citizen scientist doing your own research, being like, oh no, I get sweetness everywhere.
What shit in my mouth. Yeah.
I mean, and that's essentially what scientists did. They essentially just did exactly your experiment. Right. And showed that, like, actually, you know, taste buds can actually sense all of those different tastes, and you have different concentrations. So the tongue map is gone. If you see a picture of the tongue map without an X through it, then like just X it out, because I'm surprised that it still lives on, but it's been debunked many years ago. But what we do have with our tongues is we have different gradients of taste buds throughout our tongues. So we have a high concentration of taste buds on the sides of our mouth. And actually in the back of our mouth, we have quite a few as well. In fact, we have taste buds all the way down into our stomach. Taste buds have been found in our stomach, which is wild. And who knows why evolution kind of made that a thing. But
so just to be clear, it's not that, is it that everyone has taste buds in their stomach and just they don't go looking for it very often, or like there's rare evolutionary cases where person has taste buds?
No, like human beings have taste buds in our stomachs, and there must be something that some kind of feedback loop that like this is a good thing for our bodies, and we're experiencing it all the way down into our bellies. It's kind of crazy.
So just a little while ago, my kid was acting really like sulky and horrible, and we sort of said to her, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, my tummy feels weird." Can you describe that? Yeah, my tummy feels sour.
Oh,
and as soon as she said that, I knew, like, to me, well, I don't know if it could be I'm seeing blue and you're seeing blue, the different things kind of thing. But as soon as she said that, it gave me an idea of what she's feeling, right? And I feel like everyone that's listening to this, that would trigger some sort of response to, you felt something similar to that. What the fuck? Maybe
I know.
That's not completely full of crap. Maybe that is actually a thing.
Yeah.
Or am I talking out of my ass here?
I think anything is on the table.
Yes, taste buds in our stomach, mind blowing.
Yeah,
yes,
totally.
I agree.
Yeah, and so we however, I'm sure in the spirits world, it's pretty common to spit when you're evaluating, when you're doing a lot of evaluations, and it makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, you're just going to get totally hammered if you're, having 80 samples a day. And the literature does suggest that you're not really doing yourself a disservice by not swallowing. You are still getting a pretty overall comprehensive idea of what the flavor is all about. We had to look into that a lot because of North Carolina laws. Didn't allow for drinking on the job, so we had to spit.
Right.
So anyway, it turns out that even though you do have taste buds all the way back through your throat, that you're really not, doing yourself a disservice if you have to spit when you're doing an evaluation.
That's interesting. So the guys from Balcones, Jared Himstadt, who was Distiller of the Year 2 years ago, I think, we did something with him, and he said he's torn on the subject because he feels like he cannot taste something properly unless he drinks it. And it wasn't because of taste, it was because of the retronasal thing.
Yeah.
Because of sitting there, and for the next 10 minutes, you're basically, I guess, burping, or there's some sort of gas exchange between your stomach and back into your windpipe, I assume, that has it. And so, when they're sitting down, they need, like you say, when you need to try 100 things, like you can't just be drinking all day at work and then expected to
right
operate heavy machinery and drive home, sort of thing. But it's also a case of, like, I'll quite often notice if I'm drinking something like what Roy was talking about before, a hook whiskey. So you have something that's really smoky, and then you have something that's not smoky, and then halfway through the thing that's not smoky, you'll suddenly get smoke again. And I have to imagine that it's literally, I've got Lafroig sitting in my gut.
And it's coming back.
And it's coming back, yeah.
It's making
Which
a second
sounds
appearance.
disgusting. But in terms of actually what you're experiencing, is quite nice, right? Like it's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's actually something that we at New Belgium we measured.
Oh. That's hilarious.
It's a weird thing. That was like Project Hop Burp, and that was like that was the strangest project I think I ever worked on. But that's kind of part of the experience, is experiencing it again. And yeah, I mean, there is certainly something to be said that, like, you get a lot more mouthfeels, you get more kind of like that chest sensation, especially with like an alcohol warmth. But for the most part, it's the additional benefit that you get from swallowing is actually like kind of minuscule, at least from what a lot of the literature has said. But academics like to focus on one little piece and maybe not like the overall picture. So who knows? I like to fully consume products, but if I'm drinking a lot during the day, then I'm not afraid of spitting. I'm not afraid.
All right, guys. I don't know what Lindsay. When do you need to get out of here, Lindsay? I know I shouldn't. It's a horrible question to ask you live, but I know technically you should have been out of here in about 10 minutes. So I'd like to get this competition thing wrapped up so you can get out of here.
Let's check out the competition. Soon. I'm actually in the process of moving, so I have somebody coming over to buy this very desk that I'm sitting at.
Oh, really? So if you suddenly get whipped away, we know what's going on.
But we can check it out.
All right, people in the chat, if you have not put your tasting submissions in, you need to do so right now. Actually, let me know in the chat. You've got 1 minute to tell me that you're straggling and that you need to get it done. Otherwise, we're going to call this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can go over the back end.
Yeah. Let's do that. So if people are interested to see this, especially from if you're a producer, I'm assuming this is really where it would come in interesting, wouldn't it, Lindsay?
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're going to be running the app yourself and pulling interest. I know the app is pretty much new for whiskey, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've only done a handful of whiskey tastings, but the app has existed since March, April.
Yeah, it's not a new app. There was one tasting. There was a tasting note that I was trying to put in, and I couldn't find it. Chat, drop what you think that may be if you ran into the same issue. If anyone gets it, you win a coin and a badge. While we're waiting, have at it.
Like it.
If there was something you were trying to put into the app and the tasting note wasn't there, you couldn't find it. What was it I was doing it on? I can't remember what I was looking for it on, but anyway.
Yeah. I would love to see that, because it is new. I think there's actually a way. Do you mind if I share my screen?
No, have at it. I'll full page you.
Screen sharing is easiest with 2 monitors. Oh, I'm not going to do that.
Wet Dog, I do believe, is actually in there, dude. I think.
Wet Dog, I think it is.
I think it is. Yes. Yep. I saw it and I was like, "Hey, these guys."
Hey. All right, so you can actually add something. It's not super easy to find, but I don't know if you saw what I just did, but going into flavors, you can do this little magnifying glass to find a flavor and put something in there, rainbows, and then add it, and you would be able to actually add rainbows in there. So if you're having a hard time finding it.
Blue tack was definitely not what I was thinking of. I've misclicked again. This is not what why is it doing that? Oh, every time I go to click on it, someone drops another thing.
What dog?
Why won't you come up? Iodine. Is iodine in there? Because I feel like I
Yes.
tried to find briny and I couldn't find it, but
it's not.
I should have gone to iodine. Yeah. Okay. So that is not what I was thinking of. But GM Bison, take a screenshot of your thing with that comment so I know that it's you, and then email me at jesse@chasethecraft.com and I'll hook you up with something too, my dude.
All right. So do you want me to go through the results?
Yeah, let's.
All right. So you should still be able to see my screen, correct?
No, Randall, it is not rainbows.
Oh.
And Perry, we've got running Texas joke. Queso. No, but I would definitely go for some queso right now, my man. It's just it's merch, dude. It's a challenge coin and a lapel pin. So yeah, GMR Bison, email me, my man. And let's go over the tasting notes. Sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah, so basically while you guys are finishing up your evaluation, I'll at least go just through what is seen on the back end by the producer to see what you are liking about this product. And so we looked at Monkey Shoulder and Johnnie Walker Black and Cedar Ridge and Starward Nova. And these are the four. So we got 37, 38, 11, and 16 people evaluating those. And this is what that hedonic distribution looks like in the compare. So this, the Monkey Shoulder, I like this because you can kind of see that if the distribution is normal, or if it's a bimodal distribution. In the case of Johnnie Walker, there's some modal. It's bimodal.
Modality?
Yeah.
I don't know. So essentially what you're saying is that people are grouping in different places. It's not just like a straight bell curve, or it's not just people saying, yes, I love it, or yes, I don't like it. It's kind of splitting opinion.
Exactly. And so each of those phrases that you're selecting correlates to a number, and then we're able to calculate the average hedonic score. So how much do you like it? And we're also able to see what is the distribution. So in some cases, I was just working with a chocolate producer who looks for bimodal distributions as a means for success. And so they really want to make polarizing chocolate. They want some people to be haters, but they want a lot. But they want people to also be lovers. Like, if you have a lot of lovers, that's great, but you also need some haters if you're making some good stuff.
That is genius. Yeah, because so as a Kiwi, one of the things that Kiwis love doing is giving people Marmite, because people either love it or hate it instantly,
Right.
And it's not about the Marmite. It's about the conversation and the jesting and the shit talking that comes afterwards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you can create that in a product like chocolate, that's genius.
Conversation, exactly.
Yeah.
So Starward Nova. We only had 16 tasters, so we'll probably need more before we make any kind of major assessments. But there's a suggestion of like a bimodal distribution here, and same with Johnnie Walker. So there's a bimodal thing going on here. So what was most liked was the Cedar Ridge, but again, we only had 11 tasters. But this is at least interesting to see that most people are in the liking category. But we did have more people with Monkey Shoulder and Starward Nova who were more enthusiastic about it, so scoring it at that 8 level. So that's the hedonic scores in the back. I can certainly show you what it looks like from your phone, but real quick.
No, that's we'll do it like this. I think it's more interesting to show people what it would be like if they were using it professionally, right? And then we can talk through the results in terms of the competition. And so guys, just in case it's not horribly clear, normally if you were a producer, you wouldn't be doing random different labels like this. You would have your own lineup, so all of your labels from your brand, your one brand. Or even better, or alternatively, you could have you're about to go into production with a new blend, but you've got 4 different candidates on what that blend should be. You've got 1,000 barrels sitting in the warehouse. How do we blend these together to create something that we should put out? We create 4 different blends, and we give them to 50 people. All 50 people get all 4 blends or whatever it is, and then you can decide which one you're going to release. That sort of example.
Exactly.
Where this is very powerful.
Yep, exactly. But it's fun for us to see what everybody else is saying and how we did. So let's look at Jonnie Walker. So we can see on the back end what people are saying. It looks like everybody said it was clear, medium to thin legs, and mostly in that dark amber, light brown color. All the fun is in aroma. So a lot of you guys are picking out oak and leather and vanilla and peat. What I find is so interesting is like we're all having a really similar sensory experience from all over the world, and that's really cool. And it's also really cool too that like, none of us have been really formally trained on this particular product, but I mean, of all of those terms out there in the flavor map in Sampleox, we picked out oak and leather and tobacco and vanilla, like these really specific flavors. So, we're having an experience that is really similar. So we also have peat and black pepper, moss. And so, we know that this product was liked. And so we're going to basically say it's probably, a lot of the oak and leather and vanilla is what's liked about it. And then the tastes, so most of us said low to medium sweetness, no sourness to low sourness, no bitterness to medium to low, and mouth feels low alcohol, low spice, low astringency, thin body, and medium mouth-watering. So we can look at this for all of the different brands, or we can actually just aggregate all of the tasting data from these brands and just see for funsies, like, all right, well, we got a lot of oak and vanilla from these products, black pepper, peat, and then we can kind of take these out and just see what is monkey shoulder. You can also do this on your phone. So that's kind of a segue into going into what the results are, if you want me to get to that.
Yeah. I was just going to say, guys, once Lindsay's done and once we're done with the actual competition, I'm happy to sit here and we can go through each of the 4 spirits and talk about the actual tasting notes more in depth. And then that way I didn't want to do that and give the cheat codes away to people, just for fairness sake. But I'm sure there's some of you that would like to sit down and actually talk about what you're getting in the glass. And I've seen I saw a comment go past saying that, you marked one of the whiskeys as, you kind of liked it. Oh, here it is. But now that you're sitting with it longer, it's growing on you, which is interesting. And this is what whiskey will do to you, man. So I think it'll be fun for us to talk about that more later on. But we'll go into the competition now and let you get going so you can sell your desk.
Yeah, gotta sell my desk, guys. All right, so you can see I did 2 evaluations. I wasn't able to get the others. So all of you guys can do this. Once you've done at least one evaluation, you can go to the results page, either from here. So go into results. And then you can see what your event score was and who the leaders are. Casey, what a baller. Nicely done. You've got Jock and Anonymous.
Big margin too.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess you had at least 3 bottles.
Yeah, damn, Casey. So what the palate score is, so this is calculated based on how closely I rated the samples next to that of the professionals. So you're going to get points for every attribute that you select correctly, and intensity that you select quote unquote correctly. And that's kind of how the palate score is calculated. So you can see Casey did great. Like all of you guys, I'm way down here. Look at that. It's bad. But if you're anonymous, you can actually log in by just hitting this little horizontal ellipsis and log in, and then we can see your name up there. And then you can also see, once you go into Monkey Shoulder, you can see what people were saying about it. I'm actually going to go to Jonnie Walker. So you can see how we did with each of the attributes. So these little green check marks indicate the attributes that were verified attributes. So those were the same attributes that the producer selected. And then all these little blue bars are the length is consistent with the number of people who selected that. And it's where all your peers are. The red bars are the attributes that you selected. So I selected caramel. Some other people selected caramel, and that was something that was correct. I did not select peat, but a lot of people selected peat. So now I can kind of go back and say, oh yeah, it is actually quite peaty. So I'm learning a little bit as I go. So that's fun for you. And then you also have a record of everything that you've tasted by going into this little ribbon. You can see everything that you've tasted in the past. You get little hearts if you indicated that you liked it. And then you can kind of go back and say, oh, what did that Johnnie Walker taste like? Ah, yes. It tasted peaty and oaky and leathery. So you kind of have a database where you can refer to this in the future. So that's that.
That's pretty cool. So you can use it kind of almost like a untapped kind of thing as well. Although I guess you can't just create products yourself, can you?
You can't. Hopefully, one day all products will be available. But
Yeah.
And that's something that we've actually thought about doing. But yeah, still new. Happy to get feedback.
Very cool. All right. Who was it Casey that was first? I've now forgotten.
We're gonna go back. I'm gonna be able to see.
We need first and second. And if you're in here, or if you're looking at the app yourself, and you know that you're first or second. Same deal, guys. Flick me an email. And sorry, Lindsay. Yeah, do you want to just pull that up and make sure it's?
Yeah, it was Casey number 1 and Jock is number 2.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna write that down. Casey and Jock.
Nice work.
Cool, guys. Yeah, flick me an email. I will give you some time because the whole point of this was that maybe people weren't able to make the live stream. So, I'll give you let's say a week. If I haven't heard from you in a week, then I'll go down the list and try and contact the next person. All right. Thank you so very much, Lindsay. That was an absolute blast. I feel like that was a pretty decent turnout, seeing it was the first time we've done it.
I'd say.
Yeah.
That was cool. Do it again.
Yeah. I think we should. I guess there's no real way to see how many individual people there are. I guess I could look on the leaderboard, couldn't I?
Yeah. Let's see with the leaderboard. How many individuals did we have? We had 47.
47. Oh, nice. That worked well.
Yeah, that is not bad.
You were number 4 last night, dude. You've been pipped out, have you? You did not win, Randall. I'm sorry, my man. But all right, I'm gonna stick around for a little while. I already know that I owe. I'm gonna keep a track of this as well, or I will forget because I am drinking. It was
I don't know how you do it.
The drinking?
The drinking also being so professional.
Oh, I don't think this is exactly professional. I wouldn't call it that. Shit talking.
Yeah.
We're good at that around here.
Yep.
Yes. Jock is saying, oh, is that you, dude? Is that you that got what was that second place? Nice. And yes, I 100% agree. Thank you very much, Lindsay. This was a blast.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to find an excuse to get you back sometime. And
happy to. I've got nothing else going on.
Yeah, I guess that's a little bit like that all over the world right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know everyone that's here appreciates it as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, nice to see you guys. Thanks, Jesse. I'll see you guys in the internet land. I can always be contacted at Lindsay@draftlab.com, DRAUGHTLAB.com. You can also follow us on the social medias at DraftLab and also at sample_ox. And then our website is draftlab.com. So see you guys around.
Yeah, I know from watching names that there's at least a few people in the industry here. So if you are interested, guys, please do get in touch with Lindsay and have a chat about how you can work together in the future. But yeah, thank you very much, Lindsay. I'll let you guys tell your desk. And
all right, see you. Yeah, all right, see you.
See ya. All right, team. So that was a blast. I desperately need to go to the toilet. So I'm going to run to the toilet really quickly. But when we come back, we can talk shit. We can go through those tastings individually. Most of the people that submitted tastings did so by text and email, and then I had to translate it into the app. So if anyone is interested to hear the full tasting notes, we can do that as well. Be cool to do some homebrew. So actually, the reason that Lindsay and I got put in touch with each other is that I was hoping that we would be able to use this app to do the collab stuff. And it just didn't quite work out. We had too many specific requests for things in terms of functionality we needed, and it just wasn't reasonable to expect that from a purpose-built, an app that wasn't purpose-built for it. But that's why we first started talking, which was an absolute pleasure. And after we got to talking, I kind of realized that the app's pretty interesting in and of itself. And we realized that we could potentially do an event like this. So I hope it's been fun, guys. It's not over yet. Let me run to the bathroom, and I will be right back. Oh dear God, that feels better. So much better. I feel like we need some, I could do with some greasy, salty food right now. That'd be good. All right, guys. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So just so you know, guys, the actual how much you liked it doesn't count on the score that you get. That's not part of the verified attributes, which makes sense, right? Like, because what producer would not just say that their whiskey's amazing all the time? It's kind of how people work a lot of the time. But yeah, it is interesting that as you sit with a product, as you take time with it, it changes and it evolves over time. It really is very interesting how that happens. I mean, it's up to you guys, man. This is just chill time now, so we can just do Q&A. We can hang. We can all collectively taste the whiskeys that we have. Up to you guys. Drop it in the chat. Let me know what you think would be cool, and I'm happy to go with with all of that. I don't know why you're dropping your phone number in the comments there, man. That's not a good idea. Yeah, I need to get onto that, dude. So the problem at the moment is that these glasses, the Chase the Craft glasses, are actually in Texas. They're going to be fulfilled out of Texas by the same place that the Whiskey Tribe use. The problem with that is that I've got product here still, so it's a bit of a logistical nightmare in terms of, when people jump on the website and make an order, getting shipping prices to be accurate and to be fair, like no one's getting charged a shit ton of money for shipping when they shouldn't be. And, I'm not losing a whole lot of money on shipping is going to be a nightmare. The good news is if you're in America, shipping is going to be a whole lot more cheaper on this new stuff once we get it all rolled out properly. Sorry to the guys in New Zealand. It's just the way it has to be. There's not really anyone in New Zealand that has a service like that for a reasonable price, unfortunately. So I'm hoping they'll be available soon, but they're ready to go. Technically, they're ready to go now. I just need to get the e-commerce side of it sorted out. So Casey and Jock will be getting a glass. Like I said, give me an email if you're here. I saw Jock a little bit earlier. Flick me an email. Casey, I don't know if you're here or you're under a different name or something. But yeah, flick me an email. Okay, dude. You got nothing to do. You just want to talk with someone. Fair enough, man. You never know who's watching these things. Hey, there we go. Congrats, my man. Just out of interest, how many bottles did you have? I'm assuming you had to have at least 3. And sorry to the guys that didn't have more than 2 bottles, but it's just kind of the way it had to work. All right, so yeah, no one's saying what we should do. No? All right, we're just going to do it. So I'm going to pour myself a fresh monkey shoulder, and I'm going to mix all of this in over here. And I'm also going to pull up the email from Daniel where he gave the tasting notes. Just out of interest, how many people actually have monkey shoulder on hand? Yeah, dude. Yeah. It was going to be like that. It's just the way it is with distribution and international and stuff. So I've got another couple of prizes to give away, and those will be for people that only had 2 or less bottles. All right, so I'm on the monkey shoulder right now. And compared to especially the other 2 that I had with Roy, this is sweet, it's approachable, it's a cheap whiskey, but there is quite a lot going on. I mean, it's only 40% ABV. There's a slight malt mustiness in there that Roy didn't seem to agree with me on. But yeah, opinion on using a copper helmet to help with taste on your still. In my opinion, the biggest thing with the copper helmet is copper contact. Obviously, it's going to push up passive reflux a little bit based on the just having more surface area. I think it's quite specialty equipment. So yeah, I do think it will change flavors. Is that going to be a huge change in flavor? No, I don't think most things are. I think most things are small, incremental changes that all add up together. So yes, if I was going to be producing whiskey, if I was going to create a distillery and I was going to go into business, and the thing that I wanted to do was make single malt, yes, I would have a still with a whiskey helmet of some description, whether it be an onion or a full-on flared-out helmet or whatever it happens to be. I would have something like that on the still. Am I worried about the fact that I'm making single malt without one? Do I think it's going to grow? Like, can I not make something that's delicious with it? Yeah, no, it doesn't. I don't think it works like that personally. Terry, yeah, it's been a while for me too, my man. I'm guessing you don't have any on hand. What are the others we've got? We've got Starward Nova, which I'm guessing you won't have. We're having the Cedar Ridge Iowa Bourbon and the Black Label, the ones that were part of the competition. And Roy convinced me to buy this, and dude, holy shit, yes. I hate him though. I hate him because when this bottle runs out, I'm going to want to buy another one, and my wallet isn't going to enjoy that. Yeah, I know, dude. There's a lot of things like that in the hobby that are, they suggest things that they shouldn't. You only had Jonnie Walker and a guest on the other 3 from watching Whiskey Tribe videos and Whiskey Vault videos. 4th place. You son of a bitch. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. What batch monkey is it? Batch 27, my man. That is a good point. And I was supposed to talk about that with Roy at the beginning of this, is that, yes, just because we both bought the same bottle of whiskey with the same label on it doesn't mean it's going to taste the same. That's a very, very good point. And I was supposed to bring that up with Roy because he's, much more well-equipped to talk about that than me. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Are they? I don't know what the deal is with Monkey Shoulder. I've only ever... no, actually, I lied. This is the second bottle I've bought. I did buy a bottle when the craze first came out with the Whiskey Tribe. But But yeah, I don't know. Maybe is that just the way Monkey Shoulder do their branding? They call it batch 27 to act like they're cool. Yeah, okay. So maybe they're pulling bullshit on us. All right. I don't know. But yeah, once again, you know, that there is going to be slight variance between bottlings, even if they're not labeled as such. Anyway, so let's pull up the sorry guys, this is going to take me just a second. I'll pull up the notes from Daniel and we can go through it, and I'll do my best to be honest with you and tell you what I do and do not get from this myself compared to what he's getting, and if I taste anything different. I would invite you to do the same. If you've got a bottle at home, start throwing things out in the chat. If you think that something is off or something is different, so on and so forth. Where are we? Here we go. All right, so he had it as, he called it Honey Gold, which I translated into whatever the app had and just had the bottle next to me as well for that. So hopefully that was pretty clear. He had haze as clear and legs as medium, which, yeah, I could agree with that. It's not a huge amount of legs. And it's hard too, right? Because what are you comparing it to when you do something like this? Are you comparing it to the amalgamation of all whiskey ever? Are you comparing it to other blended scotches? Are you comparing it to scotch? You get the idea, right? For aroma, he had grainy mustiness. My man, Daniel. Hay. He's got hay. And I'm not sure if he means hay like, Craig, there you go, my man. That is what I was thinking of before. You literally couldn't put that into the app as far as I could tell, unless I'm just really shit and I spelt butterscotch incorrectly. That's what I was asking for earlier on. So I have a flick me an email, Craig. Like same thing, screenshot it so I can see that it's actually you, because people are douches and sometimes they'll try and snake your shit and get it sent to them instead of you. Screenshot your comment, or just drop another comment in the comment section so they can see that it's you, and then email that to jesse@chasethecraft.com, and I'll get you a coin sent out, my man. So that was Craig. All right, sorry, where were we? I got distracted by that. I'm glad someone else had that problem as well. I couldn't believe it wasn't on the list, but I cannot hold it against Lindsay or the team because it is new, and trust me, I know how freaking hard it is to get something like this off the ground. Hay, where were we? Hay. Now, hay to me would be not green, right? It's dried. To me, I think that's what it is. I don't get it. It's not there. For me. Is anyone else getting hay from Monkey Shoulder? Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it more on the taste. I can see that. Citrus zest, yes, I can definitely. Yeah, citrus zest. Honey glazed pear. Well, that's very specific. I'm drunk. Definitely drunk. But pear, yes, and honey, yes. I can definitely get that. Honey glazed pear. Okay, yeah. Vanilla cream, definitely. And chocolate malt balls. And funnily enough, I know exactly what he means by those. Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're still live. This is definitely the meltdown now, dude. If you've just turned up now. Yeah, we're in the meltdown, but we're going to go back through the tasting notes that the guys gave us for each specific drink. So thanks for the donation, man. I thoroughly appreciate that. That's awesome of you. Okay, Randall gets the hay, dry hay loft air. That's very specific, my man, but I kind of get what you mean, actually. Yeah, I assumed that if you're going to say hay, it's dry hay, not green hay, but I don't want to put words in Daniel's mouth. I don't get either. I don't get like standing hay, like green hay, and I don't get dried hay either. He's got the taste sweet as medium. Yeah, I'd go with that. The funny thing is, for me, with this whiskey, the implied sweetness is sweeter than the actual sweetness. Like, in terms of the actual taste, I don't think it's crazy sweet, but all of the other flavors that add into it make it sweet, if that makes sense. Bitterness, none. Yep, I'd go with that. Sourness, there is definitely a hint of sourness, and he's got it as low. Mouthfeel, body, medium. I would agree with that. I don't know what you guys think. Alcohol, low. Yep. Drying, low, and spicy, low. Mouth-watering, low to medium. That is what Daniel had in there. I think I'd agree on most of that. Is there anything that you guys think? Yeah, I think that's true. Malt ball or Swiss ball? Okay, so we talked about this, dude, with Lindsay. I don't think from memory I saw you earlier on. Maybe you just joined recently, but either way, to her point and her thinking for the app is that basically, unless you're talking sweet, sour, bitter, I can't remember them all now because I'm drunk, and then fatty and MSG as well, it's not flavor. It's actually an aroma. You're smelling it in retro nasal. It's coming back up and you're smelling it. Did you guys catch her little point that she made on that? That if you say it tastes like, if you use the word like, it's probably not a taste. It's probably actually an aroma. And that was really interesting because think of it. If I'm describing a whiskey and I say it's sweet, that's something I would say. I wouldn't say it tastes like sweet, and I wouldn't say it tastes like astringency. I would say it's sweet, or it's astringent, or it's sour. But I wouldn't say it tastes chocolate cake. I would say it tastes like chocolate cake. And I've never heard that before. I've never heard that that separation, that way of dividing them before. I think that's really interesting. So Randall's just said banana. I wouldn't say this whiskey tastes banana. I would say this whiskey tastes like banana. So it's probably not actually a taste. It's actually an aroma. Super interesting. Very, very interesting. It is kind of confusing in the app, I will admit, because I'm used to putting down aroma and then flavor. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, that's the reason it's divided up like that. Oh yeah, no problem, dude. I wasn't accusing you, my man. It's not church. You don't have to be there. I was just explaining that it came up earlier on. Hairiness. You say beard was just dripping in your glass. Love the beard, by the way. No, I'm not getting any hairiness. If I say it tastes, I'm tasting chocolate. If I say it tastes like chocolate cake, I'm remembering something I've had before, a specific memory. Yeah, I get what you mean, dude. Yeah. But when you're describing something, it's by no means a hard and fast rule. It was just something that she was throwing out there. That if you're using the word like, chances are it's not actually a taste. Whatever it is, like yes, we think of it as a taste, but it's actually an aroma. So I don't know what you guys think, but in terms of enjoyment for price, I quite enjoy Monkey Shoulder. It has that sweetness. It has that restrained aspect of what Roy was talking about earlier on with the bourbon cask. You know, a fairly high percentage of bourbon cask influence. But it also has just a few layers of things going on. That slight malt mustiness is something that adds to it for me. I don't think of it as a stale or an off flavor. It's delicious. I love it. Yeah. And it's not great, but just for the price, it gives me the fix of that specific type of whiskey that I enjoy it. I like that type of whiskey. I am not from Australia, although I was born in Australia, to be fair. I was born in Cairns, Moved to New Zealand when I was about, I don't know, 1, 2, something like that, obviously with the family, and grew up in Hastings, which is halfway up the North Island of New Zealand. I did go back to Cairns and lived there for a while with my wife. We spent about 10 years backpacking after we met, and Cairns was one of the places that we lived. I worked on the dive boats there for, I think it was pretty much a year. I was a underwater photographer, which led me into photography, which led me into this. So if it wasn't for Cairns and it wasn't for diving, I wouldn't be here. Yeah, guilty as charged, dude. Technically, I guess. All right, so man, I hate to whip through these whiskeys so quickly, but you're right, mate. You're right. It's basically the same thing if you're not from down here. I guess you know what I'm going to do. I am going to make a well, it's not really a spit bucket whiskey because I haven't spit in it, but the remnants of everything else. So I to be fair, my MO is to alternate between Marmite and Vegemite because I like them both, and I think they taste better when you haven't had them for a while. So I will have Vegemite for a while, and then I'll have Marmite for a while. That's kind of the way I roll. All right, Johnnie Walker. This was done by Roy, so let me pull those details up. God damn. How are you supposed to pour? If you go full hog, nothing happens. If you go halfway, it like dribbles out. How do I get my whiskey out? Am I retarded? Yeah. Like, am I? Oh my word. Okay, I got some Johnnie Walker Black Label out though in the end. All right. Let's do. Oh, where did Roy email me? Oh, here we go. That was easy. All right, so Roy has broken this out into nose, palate, and finish, which is interesting, which is much more traditionally the way I would go about it. But in saying that, I can completely understand why Sampleox has ordered things the way they have. So on the nose, he has light smoke and malt. The actual smoke to me is super light on this. How many people are drinking Black Label? Oh, okay. We got a question. Why have you started using bubble plates on your CCVM? Do you find it better than a packed column, carries more flavor, etc.? Yes. As a knee-jerk reaction, I find that it does carry more flavor, but it depends on what you compare it to. I like it because I can be quite, how do I put it? It's quite easy for me to throw 2 plates on and know what I'm going to get out of it. It's quite hard for me to change the amount of packing in the column and decide what I'm going to get out of it. So I like running the bubble plates when I'm going to do a one and done run. So if I don't have enough volume to do a stripping run, so if I don't have 100 liters, 200 liters of something to strip down and then run, or to do a 1.5 run, so maybe if I've got like 70 liters, I can do a full pot, strip it, and then add that back to the remaining wash and whack it in. If I don't have enough volume to do that, I like to use the plates because I can use 1 or 2 plates and still hit that, sort of 80% starting mark and drop down from there throughout the run. To sort of, how do I put it? It's almost like it mimics a stripping run, if that makes sense. It's pretty similar. You guys know me. I like body and funk and craziness and oiliness and especially my whiskeys. So yeah, it sort of mimics that a little bit more for me. I was running the bubble plates with the CCVM head for a little while there, but I didn't like that because you can't go below 50% reflux. So that makes it pretty hard if you're trying to dial things in really specifically. But anyway, back to the Johnnie Walker Black. Who's drinking Johnnie Walker Black in the comments? If you are... Oh, I've got the wrong one. Smoke and malt. Yeah, so I actually find it pretty hard to pick up the actual smoke in this. Real light. It's almost like a nose feel. I can feel the prickliness of it. It's not alcohol. Now, Roy says wood shavings and pencil case, which is a freaking awesome description of this, because think back to when you were a kid at school and you opened up your pencil case to do some drawing. It is just that. It is so much like that. There you go, mate. Drinking your wife's whiskey. That's the way to go. My wife drinks my whiskey. I'm not quick enough. I can't drink the stuff fast enough. She gets in there before me. Smokes at the back end for you. So that's interesting, dude. I haven't had a taste right now. All I've done is sniff it. I was talking about what Roy said on the nose to start with. I'll get there in a second. Wood sugars, yes, definitely. Demerara, yeah. Flat Coca-Cola, yes. I like that. It's a good description, and yes, I totally get that in here. And a light mustiness. Vanilla, and then on the palate, vanilla caramels, brown sugar, cola cubes, cherry lips, cinnamon stalks, bubblegum, creme brulee crust, barley malt, and a little ashen. Yeah, so I think I do get the ash on the palate somehow, when I don't get it so much on the aroma. The bubblegum, yes, I get it. Creme brulee, yes. Cinnamon stalks. Oh, cinnamon sticks, I assume that's supposed to be. Yes, get cinnamon sticks. Yeah, I think I can agree with all of that. And then the finish is light smoke, salted caramel, and a tiny bit of brininess. Yeah. I feel like I can roll with that. See you later, Peter. We're totally winding down, man. I am not speaking properly anymore, but I felt like we should get through these whiskeys, and tell you guys if we had anything more to say about it, or if the group could contribute back. The whole point in this was to get people tasting things, to have a little bit of community where people can throw out ideas and different flavors and talk about it a little bit, where we're generally not able to do so right now. So yeah. Celery stalks. Celery stalks. No. Although, no, you just put the idea in my head and I thought I could taste it. I can't taste it. There's no celery stalks there. But celery, that's actually kind of a cool descriptor, because it gives you that, I guess, just that generic greenness, like foliage. I don't know. That's kind of what I think of when I think of celery anyway. Woo! Has anyone got anything to add on the Johnnie Walker Black? Yeah, I agree. Oh, you son of yeah, I wish I had some of that right now, my man. No, my friend. No. I don't need to today. That's why I'm still here drinking. Wife's going to get him on the way home herself. Yep. The life I live, my friends. The life I live. It's tough, but someone's got to do it. And okay, real talk for a second, guys. It's pretty freaking cool that I get to do this. It really is. So thank you to all of you guys. The people that are here in the chat right now, there is a bunch of names right here that are like the backbone of the community, the people that are here all the time, the regulars, pretty much, yeah, every name here I'm pretty much recognizing. So thank you. You guys are the reason that I get to do this. Especially thank you to the Patreons, because, yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. The COVID thing kind of kicked us all in the ass and changed things up a whole lot. And the fact that I can just carry on and just put more time into this rather than going out and looking for a job and going through all that bollocks, especially in this market, is pretty freaking cool. And it also means that I get to spend more time with the kids and with my wife. And turns out that those are actually quite nice people. I didn't know that before. I was working a shit ton before COVID. And yeah, this is, yeah, I'm getting mushy on you. But this really is has been a huge change in our lives in terms of quality of life for us and the ability for us to be a family. It's been amazing. It really has been. So thank you guys. All right. What have we got left? Let's do the Starward. I want to do the Starward before we get too tipsy. Oh, I should have done these two first. What am I thinking? Anyway. Yeah. Oh, that's not what I thought I was clicking on. Every time I go to click something. Yeah, dude, it's freaking hard, man. It's freaking hard. You take people's ability to work away and then you force them to stay at home. It's that's tough. I am insanely fortunate that I've been able to just keep working basically on this rather than anything else. Randall, god damn it. Dude. Keep your money, my friend. I thoroughly appreciate it, Randall, but you do not owe me anything, my man. Trust me, I owe you. I'm sorry, dude, but things are winding down. Actually, it's probably not a bad time to mooch whiskey when everyone's kind of merry and jolly and had a few drinks. So, Starward Nova. Now, this I can pull up in the... where is... I can go into the app and under... How do I get that back up? Brands, that's right. So this Sam did himself, and this is the Nova from Starward, which is the one heavily influenced by red wine, Australian red wine casks. So let's, I guess we can just go through from top to bottom. He's got this as clear. Yep, totally particulate. He says unrated, which I was doing as well because it's completely clear. It's not small. It's completely clear. Legs, medium. Yeah, definitely. Now, aromas and tastes. Remember, it's the same thing in the app. Red wine. 100%. I'm interested, actually. How many... is there anyone left that's still got this? Dude, like, what's going on? Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Weren't you the... Didn't you already donate earlier on? Put your wallet away. Put your wallet, your credit card down, and pick up a glass and drink with me, my man. If you can. If you can. If you're at work or you're driving or something, don't do that because that's not cool. But metaphorically, have a drink with me. But yeah, spending time with family has been pretty freaking cool. And it's kind of scary and disgusting that it took something like this to give a bunch of us a kick in the ass. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, it's great, guys. And it really has been awesome. Yeah, just the little things, man. Just the little things like being able to... I took my kid to the dentist yesterday. Normally I get, like, when I was at the old job, I had 5 sick days in a year. And if I wanted to take a kid to the dentist, that was a sick day. Gone, you know? It's nuts. And I know that that's probably a lot better than what a lot of you out there get. New Zealand has pretty relaxed laws with stuff like this. The Lafroig. That's not a bad thing to have left in your glass, man. Your youngest is off to college tomorrow. Wow, that's a huge one. Yeah. That's cool, dude. That's cool. I'm sure I'm gonna blink and that's gonna be happening to me. You're using your whiskey budget for super chats. You're not buying lots of whiskey, my man. I must admit, that's the one thing that the one lifestyle change that happened when the job stopped was that we were building up quite a whiskey collection, and now we're drinking that collection. Not compared to what other people have. Like I think right now I've got maybe like 10, 15 bottles open, and that's about it. We probably had more like 20, 25 when COVID hit, and we pumped the brakes pretty hard on the whiskey buying because it just didn't seem like a it's like, why do I need lots and lots of whiskey around the house? We have like 4 or 5 bottles. It's fine. Dude, don't worry about it. You don't owe me anything, man. It was great having you. You've been around for ages in this one too. This is like 3 hours we're pushing now. So thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, the community is awesome. 100% awesome. Dude, are you living there? Are you deployed, or what's the deal? And yeah, flick me that email and let me know where you want me to send that glass to. All right, where were we? Tasting notes for Starward Nova. Is there anyone here in the chat that still has this? Because if there's not, I probably won't go through it. I won't bore everyone else. But this, I really enjoy this whiskey. There's definitely like a little bit of a mustiness to it. Yeah, there is a huge. Okay, so Craig's got it. There's definitely a big wine hit. Like it's a big part of. Oh, sorry, dude. I think you told me that. I think we talked before. Was that you? I don't know. Maybe. I'm so bad with names. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's not entirely surprising, dude. I can understand that. But yeah. I'm interested to see if he said musty at all. And it is not a grain mustiness. He did not, did he? It is musty like old red wine musty. Musty in a really good way. Like it's like almost like white pepper. It's almost like red wine astringency and bitterness, but it's older. I don't know how else to describe it, but I really like it. For the guys that have got this at home, tell me, are you getting anything? Are you getting that as well? All right, what else did he actually have on the list? He had apple. Yeah, I can see that. It's a red apple to me, though, not green apple like you normally get in whiskey, which is probably something to do with the red wine. Licorice and anise. That's interesting. I get the licorice sweetness with a hint of the anisey licoricey flavor, but not a whole lot. But that weird licorice root, like real licorice root sweetness that is almost more like stevia than sugar. Vanilla, yeah. Raspberry, yep. That's got to be the red wine as well, right? Or the cask. Malt, pear, raisin? Wait. Is Matt here? Did I miss him? Where did that come from, Paul? Random. Awesome podcast. You know what, dude? This is something I have never really gotten into. I'm not the sort of person that's likely to stand up and like, how do I put it? I like to think that I'm relatively good at talking shit on the camera like this. I'm very good at holding a conversation with one or two people when I can, because I'm a curious person, right? So if I'm talking with you, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be a plumber, a welder, an accountant, distillery owner. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to find something that I find interesting about you, your life, or what you do. And I genuinely enjoy sitting there and asking questions and getting people to talk. So when it's a couple of people sitting around and talking, I'm good with that. But once it gets to 4 or 5 people, and I can't track every conversation that's going on, like I can't be up to play with what someone's talking about over there, I get really weird. I get real weird. I don't like it. So I am not the sort of guy that does toasts ever. Like, I don't think I've ever done a toast actually ever in my life. But I like the idea of the ceremony of it. I guess that's not quite the right word. So no, I don't have a favorite toast, but it's something I've wondered about. That sounds so bizarre. Yeah, you're getting no filter, Jesse, right now. Fresh pink peppercorn. Interesting. I don't know if I've ever had pink peppercorn. You had a few too many, mate. You've been at it a little bit long. Port. Did someone just say port? I thought I saw port. Yeah, normally port finished wines, port finished whiskeys instead of the red wine. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of people do the straight up wine cask. I had a what was it? It was a Chardonnay finished scotch single malt, which was actually quite nice. But I haven't had a lot of others that weren't at least fortified wines. And I mean, this is really a crime of opportunity. It was like a case of they were making whiskey and they needed casks, and there was a shit ton of red wine casks around for them to use. So they gave it a go, and it worked out really well. That's kind of how I understood it anyway, from the way Sam explained it. And they're often using casks that are like literally still wet. They're not, they're not dried out and crazy. So there's a lot of wine influence in there. And it's a lot of good wine too. They have access to really good wineries there. Only 4 hours left, mate. I think I've got about 15 minutes in me. Oh, yeah, I do need to be somewhat productive today before the kids get home. Because as soon as that happens, when the kids are home, nothing else is happening. Absolutely nothing. All right, what else have we got on here? Leather and black tea. Huh. Black tea. I don't get the black tea. I don't see it. I get something slightly herby, and I get the astringency that you get with tea, but I think that's, either wood or wine, one or the other. I don't know. That's an interesting one. Very interesting. All in all, I thoroughly enjoy this whiskey. It is different. It is interesting. It is, I guess, complex is kind of the right word for what it is. Yeah, complex. And it is just, it's fun. It's different. It's rounded. It is very approachable compared to how much nuance and character it has. So it's not like a crazy big whiskey that's going to jump out and get you. Like, I'd be happy to serve that to someone that hasn't had a lot of whiskey before, especially if they were a wine drinker. It'd be a great gateway whiskey to pull someone over from the wine world into whiskey. But for those people that are looking for a little bit more, that want to delve a little deeper, there's plenty there to look for. So yeah, I rate this whiskey. I enjoy it. I very much enjoy it. I hope it's available wherever you are. That'll be good for Starward too. All right, Cedar Ridge. And then I guess we're out of here, guys. All right, Cedar Ridge. Now, like I said, guys, unfortunately, Murphy was not able to do the tasting notes for this. We did email back and forth a couple of times, and then I can't remember exactly what it was. Was it a hurricane or something? I can't remember. There was some sort of weather event that completely threw a spanner in the works, and he had some issues with the distillery and a whole backlog of stuff that he needed to get done. Obviously, sending tasting notes down to me for this wasn't couldn't. There's no way you could expect him to put that at the top of the priority list. So I did do the tasting notes for this myself. Was it last night before? But I did pull a few different reviews from different places. Now, I also have to tell you that where is it? This is I guess you call it the original version or the original label of this. Since I purchased this bottle, they have changed it. They've upped the ABV. I think, is it 43 or 46% they went to? And the reason they decided to do that, or Murphy decided to do that, is they wanted an approachable, easy drinking bourbon to let people into the genre, but they kind of felt like they just wanted a little bit more to it. They wanted to back it up. They wanted it to be a little bit bolder, to be a little bit more upfront with the flavors. And I have the older version, the 40% ABV version. Now, this is supposed to be an approachable bourbon. It's not like a challenging bourbon for someone that's been drinking bourbon forever. That's not what they set out to create. And, you know, even more so because I've got the lower ABV version of it. So just so you know that, guys, you may have, if you got a bottle that's the higher ABV, it will be slightly different to this. But it is a, how do I put it? It's a bourbon that is, I'm not a big bourbon drinker. I don't drink a lot of bourbon. It is very, very well made to be what it is, which is approachable and easy drinking. There is no faults with it whatsoever. You can't find anything wrong with it. For people that like drinking bourbon neat, they might say that it is a little bit bland, I guess, especially at this ABV. I'd love to, I really need to try the higher ABV when I can get my hands on it. But yeah, anyway, let's walk through what I got from it and see what you guys think. Where is it? Let me in. There it is. So completely clear, no particulate, and medium legs. Once again, cherry, huge cherry. That's probably like one of the most predominant flavors in this. And I get this nasty like cough syrup, like kids Panadol cherry in a lot of bourbons. And it just turns me off. I just don't dig it. I'm not into it at all. And this somehow sidesteps that. It's more like a was it, I guess, like a maraschino cherry? Is it the right word for it? The darker, slightly larger ones. But I find it hard to describe. I'm not great with bourbon, like I said, but the cherry note is not offensive to me in this, which is everything for me when it comes to bourbon. Definitely get peach. Oh my word, Jesse, you're drunk. Spilling things on the computer now. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what you think of it, my man. It depends what you have. I really do enjoy this. And I really do quite like it. But it's not something that I go reaching for if I want to be challenged or I want to sit down and pull things apart. It's just sort of straight up. It's approachable. It's easy. It's yum. It is yum. But I find it hard to find a lot more than just yum in it, if that makes sense. Caramel and cinnamon, definitely. And the oakiness in it is a little dusty. I wouldn't say that heads right towards the like pencil case like Roy was describing earlier on. But it's not like old oak. It's kind of like, it's more like, I guess it's kind of in between. It's not like the full-on sappy green oak, but it's probably more like wood shop, like woodworking oak, if that makes sense. I get blueberry on it too, which is interesting and different. I do have to go looking for it a little bit, but it's there for me anyway. And molasses and tangerine. The great. Yep, that is a great toast, my man. Yeah, I guess we should probably put the follow-up to that in there too, shouldn't we? So people know what we're talking about. The funny thing is, this bourbon to me is it's kind of the process and the idea of the bourbon is great too, that I really enjoy drinking it. It's funny, the more I drink spirits, the more I started attaching spirits to memories and attaching spirits to characters and people. And this reminds me of Murphy in a lot of ways. He's like compared to what he's accomplished, he's so freaking chill. He's so down to earth and just like a normal dude. If you guys don't know Cedar Ridge, like look it up. Of note, they they do Slipknot's bottle as well, which is pretty freaking cool. Earwax. But yeah, it's the same sort of thing. You can't fault it, but it is restrained and chill. And I do have to admit, guys, it was kind of bogus of me to throw a bourbon in amongst a bunch of other scotches. But the thinking was that I wanted to do something that was made in America, that was easy to get in America, that was, fairly well priced, and most importantly, distributed well. And I also like representing the smaller craft whiskeys and stuff like that. So that's why I threw some Cedar Ridge in there, and I had a bottle, which was great. All right, guys, we literally just hit 3 hours on the dot right now. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We're going to wind down. We're going to take 5 minutes, and I'm happy to just keep asking questions as they come. But if nothing pops up, 5 minutes, and we're out of here. Thanks a bunch for hanging out with us, guys. I enjoy doing these things. It's nice to not have to record something and then sit down and edit it. It's nice to be able to just shoot from the hip, and to be able to have some, semblance of interaction between us, rather than just me talking at you, which, let's face it, it's never good. Let's do this again. Yeah, I think we should, man. I think we should. I'm going to have a think about how we can make this better, how we can do something similar. I don't know how to make it better. The biggest problem with anything like this is that we run into the problem of, how do people get hold of the same thing, right? How do we taste the same thing when we're not in the same place and we don't have the same liquor store and the same distribution to get hold of things? That's tricky. I'm still toying with using this somehow for the collab. And yes, guys, I know. I need to get onto that. We put it on hold to see if we could get it to work with Sampleox or oh, dude, what's their other app called? They've got another app. I can't remember right now because I'm a horrible person. But yeah, I do. I need to get that fixed. Now that we know it's not going to work, I need to get onto it. Yeah, I think once we get everything opened up, we should do that. That's a good idea, dude. Yeah. And what I was going to say earlier is that I think we could still use Sampleox kind of as a not so much the data mining, which is what I really want from collab, but kind of just for shits and gigs. Like we could do a live stream and get everyone just to throw their tasting notes from the different things in, and just like talk shit about what we've made and what we've made it from and stuff. I think that'd be good fun for sure. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it as well, man. And for that reason, I would really like to get the higher proof version of it, because I think Murphy, even in the podcast we had with him, he sort of said that this bourbon wasn't made for people that are drinking cask strength whiskeys, every week. That's just not what it's for. But I guess they've sort of pushed it a little bit more towards like, be able to do that more towards it. Oh yeah, okay, cool. I can answer that for you, man. So if you're building a CCVM and you're doing it with a keg and you want to know what to do differently, Draft Lab. Thank you, Jock. Honestly, dude, I think that build is awesome. I would not change anything specifically about it other than my workmanship, which was, I could do a much better job of the way I actually built it, but I don't think it really affects the flavor of the product that I'm creating. It's just more of a pride thing and a visual thing. The two things that I would potentially change are, one, I would do a taller column. I planned on having a 2-piece column, so I could have 2 different pieces that were different lengths. So I could have the short piece or the long piece or both together. So I would get 3 different potential heights out of the column. I never made the shorter piece of the column, and that's because I fell into making whiskey and flavorful products more than the reflux stuff, especially now that I have the Genio. But if you were doing it from scratch, I would suggest, getting yourself a little bit more heights, exact length. I don't know, man, it's up to you. I think my column to the bottom of the head is, I think it's 60 centimeters from memory. If you're trying to make really high ABV stuff with that, it's definitely not long enough. Probably a meter 20. Anything after that, you start getting into diminishing returns, and you're adding height for no real extra value. The other thing would be that I would make a little adapter on the top that receives the coil a little bit longer, so that I could more easily pull the coil completely up from the tee and have enough room in that adapter to knock down all the vapor. Other than that, I think it's fine. And going past that, you can start talking about doing, like a larger, wider column for more speed, or adding other pieces in. But that's the whole point. You build the damn thing modularly, so that if you decide you want to change something, you've got parts laying around. You can always use another piece of 2-inch tube for something. If you're going to switch it out for a 4-inch column, that's fine. You don't have to rebuild everything. That's a cool thing about building with ferrules. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't think we were talking about the keg as well. Having that large app, like the large fill cleaning port, is definitely worthwhile. Even with that 4-inch one, my fat ass arms struggled to get. I can get past here if I need to clean, but I'm not going to be getting past, up into my upper arm. So there's some parts of the boiler that I just can't reach inside. And if I didn't have that 4-inch port on there's no way it would be happening. So yeah, that's cool. I do like that. But once again, as Jock says, speed would be nice. So you're not doing like literally a 12, 13 hour run. A wider one would be great. Yeah, I agree, man. It's nice just to hang. What are we screenshotting? What's going on? Oh, me doing this. Yeah. Can't do anything with Terry around. All right, guys. This has been an absolute blast. I know it didn't work out entirely as we planned, but I think we did a pretty good job. I think it worked well. And it worked well because you guys joined in and, helped out. So thank you, man. Thank you, guys. I thoroughly appreciate it. Thank you to all the people that submitted tasting notes. I very much appreciate that, and I appreciate you being a part of it. For people that did win some stuff, get in touch with me, and I will get that merch out to you ASAP. That's hilarious. So thanks a bunch, guys. I am going to go eat some food and sit down for a little bit before the kids come back. I think that's a great idea. So keep it classy, guys. Keep chasing the craft, and I'll hit you tomorrow with a video. I'll see you then. See you guys.